Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, June 27th. We are at the end of the week. We are 1 day left, or 2 days left, basically, of Q2, and then we officially start Q3. And we are live, and we are alive again on the market open. Yes, it's 8:46. I'm 1 minute late. I know I said yesterday I would start coming 5 minutes early. It's like we haven't really implemented that yet. Eventually, that'll happen. But for now, we are back to the basics when it comes to starting on time. But we're here. It is Friday. It has been a hell of a week in the stock market. All-time highs on Nvidia, Robinhood, Palantir, S&P 500 maybe today. Got very close to all-time highs. We're going to see if that ends up playing out. We do have some macro data to look into, which is the PCE data, which isn't the best, to be honest. I don't know if it's like a thesis breaker on ending out this week in the green. We do have some stocks that are going red in the pre-markets, but not as red as you would expect based on some of the data that we got. So we'll talk about that when it comes to PCE. We have Trump making headlines once again, our content-in-chief president, because he said that we have a trade deal officially done with China and India. And the China deal has been signed. By the way, China actually confirmed to an extent the deal. So we'll be talking about that and seeing if the market cares. I think to an extent the market believes it, but in reality, I'm not sure how much they believe it. So we'll be talking about that. And then we will kind of see all the other headlines we've got going on as a variety of stocks are pumping in the pre-market, but they're not pumping as much as they were before some of the PCE data came out. One stock that's pumping in the pre-market that, you know, always does this, because why not? Why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it pump after we sell it? Nike up 12%. We did a gamble on earnings. I bought 100 shares at 62. I could have made $700 if I had waited until after the earnings call. To be honest, I was never going to wait for the call. I was just not going to risk the money waiting for the call, because last couple times on the earnings, the call was bad and the stock dropped 10%. Last one, it was 7%. The quarter before that was about 12%. This time, I don't know what they said on the call, but they said something good. And so the call helped and the stock went up. So you can put all the I told yous in the chat to not sell, but the point is, like, just my risk tolerance was not going to wait for the call. Like, I don't care about Nike. I didn't know what they were going to say on the call that was going to be that interesting or exciting, but apparently they said something. And if anyone knows what they said, let me know, because I didn't listen to the call. But they said something that got the market excited. Now, our good friend Triple V, he texted me last night after the earnings. This guy bought 100,000 shares at 62. I bought 100 shares at 62. And then after hours, he just texted me the screenshot with the stock up 10%. And I was like, oh, well, congrats on the 700K, because that's like 700K in a day. Not too bad. Not too bad. So there you go. Nike 69, 63. I mean, I think it's going to hold it too. I mean, it might come down a little bit, but dude, like it's 11%. Whatever they said was good enough to hold it in the pre-markets and after hours. When the market opens, you know, we'll see if there's people taking advantage of that. Maybe, you know, maybe Triple V sells as well. But I mean, there you go. 11% move. Maybe the market is turning on the narrative for when it comes to Nike. And if it is, who knows? Maybe Nike is going to be a little bit of recovery. Bill Ackman is definitely going to be happy about this, given he has a lot of in-the-money call options. If you bought Nike calls, congrats. I mean, I made $13 yesterday. And I did a giveaway for $175 yesterday. So it was like so net negative. I honestly, if we had made, I was just going to give it all away. Like if we had made a couple $100 after earnings, if it pumped like 65, 65, the whole plan was just to give away the money. So we did a giveaway of like basically $200 even without making anything. But it would have been nice if we held on until the end, because, you know, we would have made some money. Anyway, that's what we got. And let's keep going. Amit makes me tired. He's online every day, 24 hours a day. I appreciate you being here. We did the lemonade deep dive last night. So thank you for everyone who came to watch that deep dive. I thought it was relatively interesting. I'll go over my thoughts a little bit later on what I think about the stock, but I do think that we got that thesis out pretty well and clear for everyone who has been curious about the name. And, you know, that now that the name is getting some momentum, hopefully people have it as a source where they can understand why people are interested. All right, let's talk about PCE, and then we'll get into everything else. So inflation, not the best. Year-over-year growth, PCE 2.3 versus 2.3. Last time it was 2.1, so that came in line with expectations, but it is higher. Core PCE 2.7 versus 2.6. That's a miss, and previously it was at 2.5. Month-over-month PCE 0.1 versus 0.1. That's okay. Core PCE 0.2 versus 0.1. That is a miss. So we missed on the yearly and the monthly when it comes to PCE. And I think that's why, you know, that's why the street theoretically was a little upset. We're seeing a little bit of red in the pre-market. Ultimately, this market is incredibly resilient, and we'll talk about some of the dynamics that are basically taking the S&P 500 to all-time highs. Are we at all-time highs in the pre-market? S&P? Yeah, we are. Wow, look at that. All-time highs. 52-week high on the S&P was 613.20. We are at 613.40. Now, we got to hold it when the market actually opens for it to count as an all-time high, but there you go. That is our all-time high. So we got to see if we can hold it until the market opens. But even with this PCE data, I mean, it's just not enough, I think, for the market to get that upset. And we'll talk about all the dynamics for why the market is happy about what they're seeing and why we're seeing this momentum across a variety of tech stocks. But I don't think a little bit of a miss on PCE would necessarily be the thing that causes that right here. Let's get a little bit more coverage right here on some of this PCE, and then we will keep going from there.
Yeah, there's a lot to get through here, Joe, and I think we're still seeing maybe some distortions from tariffs and some of the changes going on from the Trump administration. So just to get to the income number, which Rick correctly rhetorically raised his eyebrows at, I want to read you a line from the statement here. The decrease in current dollar personal income in May reflected decreases in government social benefits, and that it's something to do with a decline from the Social Security Fairness Act or payments from that. Don't know about that. I need to look into that. Then I want to tell you something else here. The $29 billion decrease in current dollar PCE in May, and that's the spending, reflected a decline of $49 billion in spending on goods, partly offset with an increase of $20 billion in spending on services. What is that telling you? Well, two things, I think. You might have had a decline because the benefits decline. You may have had a decline in spending. But this is the reverse of the front loading, right? This huge increase in goods spending in the prior months. Now they're unwinding that a little bit. So like I said, when the May retail sales came out, it was minus 1%. I said, let's chill a little bit on this because we're not sure if this is actual weakness or it's just payback from the front loading. So I'm going to take a, what do you call that? Neutral on this number. I'm not panicking on the consumer right here, right now.
And I would agree. I think the market's not panicking either. I mean, you got a lot of stocks that are green in the pre-market, Robinhood, Palantir, Tesla, Nvidia. So it doesn't really feel like this is cause for concern about inflation. However, this is going to be something where Jay Powell looks to and say, hey, I can't necessarily cut rates because we're not really beating on PCE, which is the thing the Fed cares about. They look at CPI, PPI, but PCE is the core metric. Now we're going to get PPI, CPI over, I think, the next 12 days. And so hopefully those are reduced to the downside, which could maybe get the June PCE to also come down. But as of now, I think it's pretty obvious the Fed is likely going to stay in the position where they don't cut. Google right here, 173. SoFi, 1692. Noto has been saying over the past couple of days some bullish things about payment processing, crypto coming back, level 1 options, et cetera. So I think the market's pricing that in, and they are getting excited about what the future of SoFi could look like. I think that, $20 is not crazy by the end of the year. If you got some of these stocks running the way they are, SoFi should be probably in that 20 to 25 range, regardless of how you feel about their product velocity or their innovation. Like just the pure earnings alone should get them there. 1692. Hopefully we can break 17 today, and that shouldn't be too crazy. AMD right here, 144. Nvidia, 155. Tessie, 326. Palantir, 145.68. And then you got Robinhood right here, 84.60. Real quick on Robinhood, we did get a price target upgrade from Compass Point. They upgraded to $96 from $64. And here's what they said. Hood is up 122% year to date, but the business is clicking on all cylinders. While valuation is getting more expensive at 55 times, Hood offers exposure to multiple thematic trends. In the near term, we could see the stock taking a breather after Monday's crypto event, which I'll be streaming live at 11:30 on Monday. However, we still see enough catalysts in 2025 that can push the stock higher. Therefore, we would buy the dip if investors sell the news after next week's crypto event. Hood offers exposure to multiple themes, including a well-capitalized retail trade and maturing millennial Gen Z demographics and efficiencies from blockchain tech. In a buoyant market environment, we see investors playing a higher premium to gain exposure to these narratives, and we lift our price target to 96 versus 64. This is the highest price target on the street. Actually, I think Bernstein has 105, so it might be the second highest, but this is a pretty high price target. And it's nice to see that some of the street is recognizing some of the value in Robinhood. Okay, trade deals. So this is what Trump said yesterday around China and India.
A few months ago, the press was saying, do you really have anybody of any interest? Well, we just signed with China yesterday, right? Just signed with China. We have everybody. We're not going to make deals with everybody. Some we're just going to send them a letter, say, thank you very much. You're going to pay 25, 35, 45%. That's the easy way to do it. And my people don't want to do it that way. They want to do some of it, but they want to make more deals than I would do. But we're having some great deals. We have one coming up, maybe with India, very big one, where we're going to open up India. In the China deal, we're starting to open up China, things that never really could have happened a few months.
Okay, so I know Trump's been screaming about tariffs for a long time, or screaming about trade deals for a long time, but this time I actually think they're getting close to it. So here's some reporting on what China is doing. They said they'll review and approve eligible licenses for items subject to export control rules. The U.S. will correspondingly cancel a range of existing restrictive measures imposed against Beijing. No details on if that's about Nvidia chips. Probably not, but maybe that's coming up in the future, which would be very bullish for Nvidia. And then U.S. President Donald Trump said on Thursday that we just signed a deal with China. Now, again, we don't have a full level of understanding of what this deal looks like. The reason I think there's a shot that there is a legit deal, and then maybe the India one's coming up, is because I think they've been waiting for this tax bill to get passed. And once this tax bill gets passed, I think they will have a little bit more authority or freedom at that point to say, hey, it's time for us to potentially meaningfully cut. And if it is time to cut from that perspective, or not just cut, but for us to make trade deals that can create the momentum for JPOW to cut, because again, we need rates to come down. We need inflation expectations to come down in order for rates to come down. The only way to do that is you get a deal with tariffs. Then that might be the string of events post big beautiful bill, which is going to increase our spending a lot and probably be inflationary. So you got to have something to offset that. That could be the manifestation of these trade deals. Question's going to be, is that going to play out? And the other reason I think is going to play out is because of what happened yesterday towards the end of the market close. President Trump, the White House said that President Trump has the authority to change the original 90-day tariff pause on all the reciprocal tariffs from Liberation Day on July 9th. And the press secretary basically said it is up to the jurisdiction of the president, essentially implying, hey, like Trump's probably not going to do a 50% tariff against South Africa on July 9th. And the market's not expecting that. And I think the market kind of doesn't believe that it's possible at this point. You have too big of a bull market, too much momentum towards the upside in regards to earnings growth for it to be crushed with some ridiculous tariffs. Now, if it really were to get implemented, I think the market would be pretty upset. But they have, in my belief, they have a 99% probability that they're pricing in, which is why we're hitting all-time highs a couple weeks before 2 weeks before the deadline, because they just don't believe the deadline's real. And based on, if you read between the lines on what Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said yesterday, it seems pretty obvious they're going to extend the deadline or trying to come up with some weird justification for why the deadline is not that relevant. So yes, it will be another taco. 1,000% it will be another taco. I don't think it's going to pump the market either, because the market is priced in that we're not going to have these insane tariffs. But Trump's going to have to make some excuse to justify why we don't need them. And here's the other reason I think they're going to get a deal. I think Trump's going to need to say this. He doesn't want to sound like he's tacoing, right? So he's going to need to say, we just signed a major deal with India. We're making so much progress with South Africa and Australia, yada, yada. We just need to give them some more time. And look at this shiny new deal we got with India. We gave India time and they finally came to the table. We got a deal done. We need to give these guys more time because ultimately we want a deal. So let's give them another 90 days. I think that's how it's going to play out. I really do. I do not think July 9th we're going to see any massive tariffs. And if that's the case, that would not be the worst thing in the world. And you would probably see some more momentum, or at least keeping this momentum and premiums in the market. By the way, what did Europe say today? Europe will buy more American weapons to pave way for a trade deal. That is one of the updates we got from the EU Council chief. So I think the negotiations with Europe as well, Trump said yesterday that he wanted oil subsidies to come down, a variety of things. He wants taxes on Facebook and Google, these digital service taxes to be gone. Those could be something that come up in the negotiations. They said right here, if we buy more American, that means the trade relations rebalance. I've said always that we cannot separate these two negotiations about trade and defense. This was the most important issue for the United States, and it's already solved. That also could be relatively bullish for, obviously, defense contractors, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, if Europe says they're going to be spending more of their GDP their defense spending as a percentage of their GDP, which also is good for the U.S. economy, but it's one of those key concessions that Trump was looking for, and NATO pretty much promised it when he was in the Netherlands over the past couple of days. So I think an EU deal and an India deal seem like the next two likely targets. And if we get those, he's going to delay the tariffs on the other ones and continue to pause, and that should hopefully pave the way for the rest of the deals throughout the end of summer. I know I'm being super optimistic here, but if that's how it plays out, I think you got all-time highs on the S&P closer to 6,500. I think that's how this plays out. And if it does, that would not be too bad. Wow, Goldman Sachs, they raised us on Robinhood, 82 to 91. Cool. 82 to 91. All right, Goldman Sachs coming in. 82 to 91. Compass Point has 96 from 64. So you got the big boys on the street saying, all right, It's time to raise Robinhood up into that higher layer. Folks, it looks like triple digits is on the cards for Robinhood this year. I mean, it maybe doesn't happen over the next couple of months because it's just been super extended. Obviously, it's had a lot of momentum, but we still don't have S&P inclusion. We get S&P inclusion, this thing can get very fun. This thing can get very fun, especially if they have to buy, at 95, 80, etc. Amazon right here, 219. That's trying to get to 220. Jeff Bezos is going to be spending $50 million on his wedding in Venice, Italy. Leo DiCaprio is there. Kim Kardashian is there. You have a lot of different celebrities, Tom Brady, etc. So, yeah, Mr. Bezos is getting married. I wonder if he has a prenup, bro. Like, I think you kind of have to have when you're that, like, he's worth 200 something billion, like, because his wife in the last one got half of everything. And now, granted, they were married for 25 years. That's a whole different situation. But I wonder with Lauren Sanchez if he has a prenup. And he says, I was invited, but I should have made that joke. I was invited, but I chose to be here. That would have been a great joke this morning, bro. I should have just stole your comment, Andy, and said that myself. That would have been phenomenal. That would have started off the morning right. That joke, that would have been great. I was invited, but I chose to be here today with you guys. Should have took that one. That was a good one. But yeah, 50 million, bro. You might have to sell a little bit of freaking Amazon stock to get there. If they divorce, she keeps AWS. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so Amazon right there at 220 as well. All right, so let's get into a couple of other different headlines. We got about 27 minutes until the market opens. Again, this is the second to last day of Q2 that is going to be ending out. And then next week we start on Tuesday. We start Q3. Google. So a lot of us have been asking, hey, is Google the answer in a frothy market? Could it be cheap? Here's what Citizens JMP Bank said. They have a 220 price target. We believe OpenAI's 800 million weekly active users compared to Google's 5 billion active users, and with AI overviews becoming generally available in the US as of May and leading to 10% query growth and testing, we believe AI is a net tailwind. Quantifying this, we see AI overviews extending from 1.5 billion monthly users in this quarter to 4 billion by the end of the year. Assuming Google's 10% query growth holds AI answers as a broader set of questions and offers better answers, we think Google may see a mid-single-digit query growth tailwind in 3Q, which would be somewhat offset by ChatGPT, even though it's not going to be fully offset by ChatGPT. However, we also believe that ChatGPT is only doing 10 billion in ARR based on their latest metrics, which means they only have 20 million subscribers. So the query growth can accelerate in 2Q 2025 and 3Q, given wider distribution of AI overviews. To be clear, this is likely not to be monetized overviews. There will be more informational queries, though Google did note at their recent event that it is also seeing a positive impact from AI overviews on commercial queries as well. Net, AI is growing the use of search at a faster rate than ChatGPT is taking share. That is your investment thesis right there in the context of buying Google at this price. You believe that AI overviews or AI as a tailwind in general is growing faster than Google than ChatGPT is taking place or taking share. And, that combined with the valuation, obviously it's a market where we do have expensive multiples. Google does not have an expensive multiple. That gets them to 220 pretty easily. And again, Google's just been a hell of a story this year. Still down year to date and has not been able to crack above this narrative that's going for it, even though there's so many components of the business that are obviously firing in all cylinders. I mean, even Waymo, even if you're super bullish on Tesla, Waymo's expanding to Atlanta. Like, there's so many things that's happening on Google that you would think the narrative alone gets it a little bit of a bump. And that's just not the case. It's just not the case here. So that's what we got for Google, 174 right here. And 220 seems to be the target across the street on a lot of these different expectations that AI overviews and AI net will be better than market share being taken away by some of the native AI companies. In terms of Lemonade, those who are asking, am I buying Lemonade? The answer is no. And the reason I'm not buying Lemonade is pretty simple. I listened to the deep dive yesterday and I thought it was good. Obviously, I was hosting the deep dive, so I was there. I thought it was really good. I think all three of them did a great job. My takeaway from the deep dive, though, is that the differentiating moat behind Lemonade is that it's an AI-powered insurance company, and the other insurance companies don't understand AI. I think that is a solid reason for an investment. It's not a good enough reason for me for it to be the investment, simply because I don't want to be betting on them just because they do AI differently than the other insurance companies. That's it. So to me, it's pretty simple. I think the thesis is there. I think it makes sense. $3 billion company. This could well be a $10, $20 billion company one day. You got some of them that, one of the guys said it could be $1 trillion company. Maybe that could happen as well. They're expecting 300 billion. Like they're expecting massive, massive earnings growth into the future and top line revenue growth. UNH is at 273. It was at 400 before the collapse. So like, obviously there's potential for an insurance company to grow as big as it does. I don't want to bet on an insurance company that uses AI as the thesis for why they're differentiated. I know there's some other parts of the thesis, but that's kind of the core of what I got. And if I'm just super bullish on AI, I'd rather buy more Nvidia, Like it's not even that they don't have a moat or anything. Like I do think they are differentiated. They'll be faster than all the other insurance companies. But that thesis alone to me was like, okay, so it's just AI as like the reason it's different. At least that's what I got from the deep dive. And I think a lot of you guys kind of like when I pushed back a little bit, that was the core argument that this is an AI company. People think of it as an insurance company, but AI is going to be fueling their insurance, underwriting, etc. And I think that's definitely a cool proposition. I just don't know if it's the most exciting one, at least for me. Nonetheless, there's a cult around this name. And a lot of people, for some reason, really do enjoy it and like it and care about it. And they believe they're right on the thesis. And so from that perspective, that could be something that definitely does have the momentum that is behind it as well. PAP, thank you for the $20 super chat. Thank you to AK Media. Had a great week currently right now. Dude, this currently right now is becoming hilarious. I've caught myself a couple times. Yes, someone needs to compile every time I say currently right now. Someone needs to do a currently right now counter and just like keep track of it. And at the end of the stream, let me know how many times I said it. Because I can't, I don't know. I don't know how it just like flows from me without me noticing, but it did. Like I posted this video yesterday when I was talking about Palantir and Hood, and like I said it again and I couldn't believe it. This is like I had to listen to it again and I was like, did I really say it? If you're going to qualify them as meme stocks, then go ahead. But I think it can carp to say these were thickeningly underestimated. Are the valuations aggressive? Of course. But is Netflix's valuation aggressive? Yeah. Netflix's PE currently right now, I say it with like pure confidence, like currently right now. Like it's just like I don't understand why I do it, but I do it. I've already said it 7 times recapping. Okay, well, there you go. Netflix's PE currently right now. It's like, what is that, bro? But it sounds kind of normal. But then when someone thinks about it, they're like, why is this guy? Like, what's going on here? Like, what's happening? So it is what it is. All right, folks, let's listen to the analyst that, quite frankly, has my heart. And I've been waiting for her to come back on CNBC. It's been like a month, but she's back. Ladies and gentlemen, one of my favorite analysts from JP Morgan, Mrs. Gabriella Santoos. Let's see what she has to say about the markets.
For the markets, Gabriella Santoos, JP Morgan Asset Management, a chief market strategist for the Americas. And you don't sound in this, in looking at your notes in the mid-year check, Gabriella, you don't sound that bullish, really.
Oh, no, she's going to be a bear. No, she's been bullish for 3 years. If she turns into a bear, she doesn't have my heart anymore. I can't have a bear have my heart. I can't have that.
Would you kind of sound how you did it at the lows? You didn't say we weren't going to go back up, but you didn't really. No one expected us to just bounce right back to where we are so quick, to new highs so quickly. Yeah. In this, because tariffs, not that much has changed. We just become used to it almost.
Exactly. I think policy at this point has gone from being an acute to a chronic issue for markets. So not driving the day-to-day based on the latest headlines, but something that's more under the surface, driving specific stock or asset class performance. Right. In terms of the view, I think it's fine for the macro economy overall. Recession risk has come down off the worst parts in early April. It's a little bit below potential growth, a little higher inflation, elevated rates. That's a fine environment for earnings growth. High single digits, totally doable this year. The problem is exactly how quickly the market already recovered. Almost at this point, 100% of its sell-off for equities, 80% for corporate credit. So really in the US, it's tough to have a wholesale, very bullish, overweight view across the board. But that said, I think there's plenty of stuff to do. Maybe asset classes that haven't rallied as much that we still believe in, or where maybe the performance has, but not necessarily the flows and the positioning. And 2 come to mind. We continue to think about this massive change that's just started in international performance, been all about Europe. Our interest is still very much in Asia as well. So think about Japan, India, which have really lagged this year, but are great stories. Or in the US, where performance has bounced back, but not interest in flows, things like financials, which is much more of a story of a steepening curve.
So we're viewing
Okay, so our argument there is the markets have pumped too much. That's it. I mean, that's not a crazy argument, bro. Her argument is, hey, we've got a lot of gains already from the market. People are expecting what, 27, 28 times earnings? We're already at 23. I mean, I can understand that from just a multiple expansion perspective. There's going to be some headwinds to get multiples to expand, given we've been basically green for 3 months. Now, Q2 earnings, I think, is going to be what solidifies if we go up or down. But I mean, if our bear case is that, hey, we pumped a lot and you can't have that much of a high expectation, I don't think it's the craziest bear case.
policy is moving from an acute problem to a chronic problem. Is there any way that we're missing the bigger picture on some of the positive things that have happened, not just with deregulation, but even with some of the things we're seeing with the effects of tariffs, things coming back here, other countries promising to invest here, our own companies promising to invest here. Maybe we're missing it, and we are not range bound for the next half of the year. What if the policy tailwinds, in fact, policy issues you talk about, are in fact tailwinds and not headwinds?
Yeah, and I use the word issue as in like concept development.
But you're not bullish, so you said range bound.
Problem.
Right?
But I think it's just at the index level that comment applies. I think a chronic issue is an issue you still need to pay attention to, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. Take the example of financials, right, where we really have seen progress in this idea of more business-friendly regulation. Just the vote this week to lower the supplementary leverage ratio, something that can really free up lending again, that can decrease the burden of holding things like treasuries in terms of capital requirements. So it's a hugely positive development.
Well, let me ask you this: could it rear its ugly head into an acute problem again if countries resist signing trade deals and we get back in an acceleration of the trade war issue instead of a range-bound market from back to the highs? Can we go back and test the lows?
Yeah, we didn't see April coming.
So I think, true. I mean, if something like that completely off the base case that raises recession risk again, then that's something that needs to be priced in again. I think in terms of the trade issue, I think it's more that markets have understood where we are rather than it's not something that's changed. So where we are right now is an average tariff rate of 15%. That's still 5 times higher than where we started the the year. It'll still have impacts on a company by company basis, depending on where they get their supplies, where they source their revenue, what their pricing power is. But for the market overall, if 15% is where we settled, then all right, got it. And the market moves on to
the White House yesterday.
So you can tell they're getting a little bit more conservative. Again, Gabriella's been bullish for a very long time. So even she's kind of maybe seeing some of the speculation and froth in the market and saying that, hey, multiple expansion, given you still have these tariffs that are in place, which again, I think will come down if we get more trade deals, could be a barrier. Now, this is what Bank of America said. The risk of a speculative stock market bubble is increasing as expectations of U.S. interest rates draw massive investment flows into equities. We saw $4.4 billion last week went into the NASDAQ 100 tech stocks, the largest weekly inflow since 2024, since June of 2024. Then they said a pivot from tariffs to tax cuts and rate cuts could lead to a higher risk of a bubble in the second half of the year and a further weakening of the dollar. And already this year, $164 billion has flowed into U.S. equities, on course for the third largest annual inflow in history. So here's the question to everybody. Here is the question to everybody. Simple question. We've had a ton of money, really in the past 3 months, enter into the U.S. equity markets post the tariff stuff, Liberation Day. Is that bubblish, or is that people just saying, I want to bet on the stock market, particularly the U.S. stock market, given foreign inflows have increased as well towards United States stocks, which again, were at its lowest level back in April because everyone left the United States because everyone was afraid about tariffs. Is it bubbly that we had almost $150 billion enter into the stock market in the past couple months? Or is it like, hey, people don't want to be in real estate. People don't want to be in money market funds, even though money market funds increased yesterday at 7.04 trillion. Or is this just a function of better allocation of capital to companies that are executing. I mean, again, there are companies that are still cheap. One could argue Nvidia is still cheap for their earnings growth. One could argue that Google is absolutely cheap. Now, Circle might be expensive, but Circle's a whole new take on stablecoin and what the world could look like. And if stablecoin's not bullshit, if it's not Web3 NFT nonsense, then that is going to be a business. Maybe it's a business that's not worth 60 billion or shouldn't be worth 60 billion today, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a business that goes out of business, because there is a real business model to the concept of stablecoins. I kind of lead towards the latter. I lead like, yes, or multiples expensive, 100%, but it's like that money didn't come into the United States to speculate on Nvidia at $100. Remember when Nvidia was at $100? Like, people bought Nvidia at $100 because it was freaking $100. Now maybe they're speculating on Circle at 220, but I don't think that means the inflows that we saw, especially at the lows of April and March, were rooted in speculation. It doesn't feel like that. There is no alternative to the U.S. markets. That is fair. I think that also matters. The OpenAI IPO will probably be the top. Yeah, I think that's going to take some years, but I mean, OpenAI is probably getting to that $1 trillion level. AI and robotics FOMO, I definitely think. Yo, my mom last night, bro. My mom, she's like, I'm getting some FOMO in this market. And I looked at her. I was like, Mom, where did you learn the term FOMO? She was like, no, I know what FOMO is. I'm learning about the stock market, fear of missing out. I was just like, what? She's like, I'm feeling a little bit of FOMO. I was like, what are you talking about? Where did you learn this term? I never taught you this term FOMO. See, my mom yesterday, she was like, hey, like, maybe I should buy some more. I'm feeling some FOMO. And she's been deploying capital all year. She's been spending. It's not like she's been heavy in cash, but she does have some cash, right? And she's like, maybe we should spend it. I'm feeling some FOMO. I just looked, I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean FOMO? Like, what's going on here? So the point is, bro, it's like, at the end of the day, yes, there is some froth in this market, but every time I look to the bear thesis and I try to be as sympathetic as possible to this is 2021, I look at the labor market, I look at inflation, I look at earnings growth, I look at macro tailwinds on the greatest time in history to be an investor, because we're in the greatest technological revolution in history via AI. And you put all that together along with business-friendly regulations or deregulations that are coming up, along with hopefully more trade deals. It's just hard to put together a bear case. You can sound smart putting on a bear case in a variety of different ways, but I don't know if it matches up to the reality of what's going on. And if it doesn't, then, maybe this market is not some overvalued speculative jungle that people are saying. Nike right here in the pre-markets, 69.13. It looks like it's going to hold 69 and maybe even gap up into the 70s. So shout out to anyone who bought Nike and held it. If you bought it at 62 and sold it at 62.50, then you don't deserve any of the gains. But if you held through their earnings call, then you do. And you're up 10% right here. Hims. All right. So what was the news on Hims yesterday? Hims right here. Phenomenal 10% move yesterday. I mean, it was a really good move. And the move, quite frankly, happened off of something very, very simple. And the move was based on them hiring the former VP of product at Robinhood to become the new chief product officer at Hims. So, I mean, look, this is kind of hilarious to me, because basically I think it's a great hire, but it's almost like the market's pumping because they're like, oh, you're getting someone from Robinhood that knows technology, bringing it into Hims, which is not really a tech company, but kind of has those tech company ambitions, obviously uses a lot of technology, and potentially will innovate on the tech side of what Hims can offer to the market. And as a result, I think the market was just like, all right, so who cares about Novo? And then the really weird thing about last night is that Novo now launched a partnership with Weight Watchers and to sell Wegovy. And it's kind of like, wait a second, Weight Watchers is like, who cares about Weight Watchers? Like, Weight Watchers is not as relevant as we thought it was before. I feel like they almost went bankrupt at one point. But Novo plans to expand access to Wegovy through a collaboration with Weight Watchers days after ending partnership with telehealth firm Hims to sell the weight loss drug. And it kind of feels like, all right, so like, did they leave Hims just because they didn't like how Hims was like behaving in the partnership and they're going to have more control over Weight Watchers, which is like, okay, fine. But does Weight Watchers have the scale and distribution and execution of a Hims to sell massive amounts of Wegovy? I don't know. But I think the market's kind of like, all right, maybe Novo kind of needed Hims more than Hims needed Wegovy, or Hims needed Novo. And now that they have this new chief product officer who's leaving Robinhood, which is on a great run because they want a new challenge and want to kind of innovate in a different space. Maybe they're having more of a tech culture and they kind of don't need this GLP partnership. which is why I never sold. Like, it just made no sense to me selling this thing down 30% because they lost a partnership that is not even the biggest part of their business, right? It's a cherry on top when it comes to GLP. But nonetheless, that's up here 10%. If this thing recovers to 50, 55, that would be really exciting to see. Question is just, does it have that momentum as well? Christopher, think of the $5 super chat amid. Don't know the answer to this, but does it make sense to own a stock on direct competitors like AMD or Nvidia? Seems like there's room for both. No, yeah, I think look, you win both. You own number one and number two in an industry, right? I mean, there's people that don't care about the Robinhood SoFi debate. They just own both. You know, you can either consolidate in one because you're picking one over the other, and because we're all investors, we kind of like to be competitive and have our picks be right? So we like to go long one, short the other, even if it's metaphorically shorting the other. And other investors say, I'll just own both. I mean, I own both. I don't own SoFi shares, but I own SoFi options, which are doing very well. They're up 500%. They could be up 1,400% if SoFi gets to 20 by the end of the year, because even I, with my critique of SoFi as a company, can acknowledge the undervaluation. And I'm not like emotional that, oh, SoFi is the worst in the world. It's like, no, like, I don't love them as much as Robinhood, but I can acknowledge that I want to make money off them because I think they're cheap. And I think that's the easiest way to play it. So owning AMD and Nvidia to me is not a bad thing. Some people just know more about, I mean, Jose, who's one of the biggest semiconductor bulls, and AMD is the second largest position after Nvidia, which is his first. So to me, I don't think it's a crazy idea to own both of them. Nick says, I own Lyft and Uber, HIMS and LFMD. I love owning both. Yeah. You don't get the benefit of as consolidating as heavily into one name, but also you might not need to. Now, if one of them is an absolute loser, like for example, if I own Palantir and Snowflake back in 2022, Snowflake's kind of performed well this year, but compared to, you know, Palantir 20xing, I mean, Snowflake IPO'd at 250, it's at 222, you know? So, and I think the lowest I got to was like 130. So even then, it's just not been the best return. So sometimes the second one is just a pure loser. But if they're both relatively decent, then it's not crazy to own both. Speaking of Palantir, here's a video on the nuclear partnership that Palantir launched yesterday, a $100 million deal, 5 years for Palantir. And this is Mike Gallagher with the CEO of the company talking about why they got this deal. Listen to how the CEO talks about Palantir. It's a pretty incredible endorsement.
$100 million or more over a period of 5 years. But for you, in the context of your company, its current operations, money raised, that's a significant outlay. It clearly is a conviction bet that it will help you achieve real world deployments faster. Is that a correct interpretation?
Oh yeah, Ed, this is the high conviction bet for this company. We're all chips on black, center of the table, spinning the wheel here with Palantir. But I would say, in all seriousness, we're doing it with the best in the world. There is no company, not only in this country, but I would argue maybe on the globe, that has the capability Palantir has to offer. And so for us, building out that platform with Palantir day one is something that's uniquely special and an opportunity for us. But it's also been done. Look at Anduril, who built the backbone of their company with warp speed. You all are working with Airbus and others now. We're fortunate to be in that camp of companies that are going to go into that warp speed program. And I think for us, just putting everything we have into the Palantir organization so we, again, can ensure that our teams are unified on the ground and have the tools and technology to win. But there's no better partner we could pick than Palantir.
Jonathan, could we just talk about
Pretty cool endorsement. So again, $100 million deal. I care less about the money. I care more about the substance of the deal. It's around nuclear energy. We're seeing nuclear get a massive bid. By the way, here's a chart right here that also explains why energy and nuclear is so important and how Palantir potentially is, making an operating system for that entire industry when it comes to nuclear energy. Take a look at this. This is electricity generation, China versus the United States. It's a chart from 1999 up until 2024. This is the total electricity generated in each country or region measured by terawatt hours. As you can see, China is absolutely demolishing the United States when it comes to the amount of electricity that they are generating. However, the United States is demolishing China when it comes to the amount of AI progress that we have. This is why I think companies like Oklo are getting their bid. Because you can see the dichotomy right here between how much China is producing towards energy versus the United States, but how much more we need versus China, just on AI alone, not to mention everything else. And you have companies that are pre-revenue, pre-earnings like an Oklo, but that are actually building the infrastructure to make nuclear real. And as a result, they are getting a bid by the market as the market's expecting explosive growth from these names over the coming years. And then you have CEG, VST CEG signed a 20-year deal with Meta, VRT, VST, all the data center plays. I mean, there is going to be a bid for energy no matter what. Even Chris's VG thesis is partly contingent on this idea that we're going to get so much demand for energy long term that you will need as many sources as possible. So I think from that perspective, energy is an opportunity that people have to look into. It's a question of what type of energy do you want to get into. But Palantir partnering with a nuclear company, to me, is just establishing that they can be a dominant player in that entire industry, which is likely not slowing down. Palantir right here, 145.44 in the pre-markets. All right, we got 3 minutes until the market opens. Johnny DeSaint, thank you for becoming a channel member. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here, and thank you for joining the channel. RA as well, thank you for becoming a channel member and for being here. And yeah, thank you everybody for being here today. It is Friday, again, second to last day of ending out the quarter. We got 3 minutes until the market opens. Let's do this right until the market opens. Put where you're watching from. Put where you are watching from across the world. I think it's been about a couple weeks since we did this. Put in the chat, whatever country, city you're watching from. And in 2 minutes, all of us collectively across the world will be opening up this market and seeing if we can end out Friday in a more bullish way and see if we can end out the week. Everyone's spamming Iran. Maybe they're watching from Iran. We got Jasmine from Jersey. We got Adrian from Mexico. We got Colombia, Netherlands, Kentucky, Austin, Texas, Denver, Sweden. We got Mr. G from AZ. I've never been to Arizona yet. I need to go to Arizona. I want to visit Phoenix. Looks like an amazing state. Maybe not in the summer. Maybe it's going to be a little bit too hot. Will from London. Ahmed from Detroit. Andre from Portugal. Tom from Germany. Don from Orange County, California. Love California. Mark from Austin. Mayor from Houston. Dude, I can't wait to come to Houston. Hopefully Texas. I want to get to Austin to see Farzad and Hans and all those guys. So hopefully soon we can make the trip down south. We got Thailand in the house. We got Toronto. Oh, I was speaking to a guy from Thailand yesterday about Grab. I'll tell you guys what he said. He said something actually very interesting. So I was speaking to him last night. We'll talk more about kind of his thesis on Grab as well. Ohio, Scotland. That's a new one. We haven't had a lot of the Scottish before. Taiwan, I love it. Sacramento, Salt Lake City, Montreal, Scottsdale, Calgary, Canada, Virginia, California, Detroit, Puerto Rico, South Florida, London, Cuba, Uzbekistan, Sacramento. It's crazy, bro. Literally crazy across the entire world. Every time, bro. Every freaking time. We got Poland in that. Every time I see all these names from across the world, it is just wild. We got Jem from Singapore. Singapore is definitely happening in 2026. We're definitely doing Singapore. So we're going to make that happen. We got Peru in the house. Oh, someone was yesterday DM me. They're watching from Chile. I love it. Very cool. Chile. It's just so awesome, bro. I'm so unbelievably grateful for people across the world. We got Nate from Ireland. I'm not going to make the joke. I'm not going to do it. I'm so grateful that everyone's here and that you take the time to watch and the precious time out of your day you spend with me. So I'm not going to make you listen to the joke again, even though Nate said he's from Ireland. But granted, we got 5 seconds until the market opens. And one day I want to go to Ireland because you know what? I want to see if I can get my money. Dublin, baby. The stock market is now open. I had to do it. I'm sorry. I had to do it. Every time I see Ireland, I have to do it. Palantir right here. 143.37. That opens down. Robinhood opens down. Tessie opens down. Nvidia kind of opening green, up about 1%, a little bit holding it. Nvidia green. AMD is green. S&P not all-time highs. That's basically flat. SoFi 10 cents before 17. Alphabet is green. Okay, so Max 7 getting a little bit of love outside of Tesla. Amazon 220, that's green. Meta 730, that's green. Salesforce, that's slightly green. PayPal, that's slightly green. Dell right here, 124, that's down about 1.2%. Where is Nike? Nike opens up $71. Congrats to anyone in Nike. Congratulations. You deserve it. You know, you held on to the shares. Congrats. Nike right here. Triple V did buy 100,000 shares of 62 last night. And unlike me, he did not paper hand and he waited till the end of the earnings call. And yeah, he's up basically $900,000 right now. Tesla right here, 322. Nvidia, 156. Nvidia's going for 157. All right, so Palantir, Hood, and Tesla fell. Everything else is kind of green, though. AMD's up, Nvidia's up, Google's up, Grab is up a little bit, Reddit, 142. Amazon breaking 220, which is really nice to see for Amazon. So Mag 7's getting a bit of a bid, including Google and Amazon, especially Meta right here, 730. But Tesla, Palantir, and Hoodie, not. Rocket Lab 3683, Duolingo below 400. You got Pfizer right here 2430, Lyft right here 1573. Iran is slightly up. Where is SoFi? Are we at 17? We are at 17, folks. Congratulations. It has been a long, long journey. A lot of you guys stayed the course, as you should. You stayed bullish. This is the beauty of continuously just sticking with a thesis. SoFi right here, 17, was stuck at 12 to 13 for the longest this year. Now you got 17, 16.98 right here on SoFi. Broke through that resistance. I'll check $18 resistance and see what that looks like for SoFi. But it's starting to make a bit of a run. SMCI, 49.19. Where is ASTS? SMCI is down about 0.5%. ASTS up 3.3, 52.29 on ASTS. You got D Local, that's up a little bit. Red Cat, that's down about 2%. Google again, 173. Elf is at 124. Apple's at 202. Apple's up 1%. Where is HIMS? HIMS is up 2.3. I mean, dude, if HIMS makes its way back to 50, that'll just be hilarious. I mean, that's going to be awesome. That's going to be a hell of a recovery. I know it was at 65 when it dropped, but to hold the 50s, if he can get back there, I think would be pretty exciting for him. So that one up about 2.3%. Uber right here is down. The story yesterday was that Uber's thinking of buying out a company called Pony.ai, and Travis Kalanick, who's the founder of Uber, who got ousted as the CEO back in 2017, he would be the new director of this AI company. Now you might be asking, what is Pony AI? Pony AI is an autonomous driving AI startup. I have no idea how they're going to compete with Tesla or Waymo. I don't even know why it's worth doing an AI self-driving startup if you don't have all the levels of data that a Waymo or Tesla has. But nonetheless, that is a company that theoretically Uber might be funding. And maybe that's going to fuel some of their ambitions when it comes to self-driving as well. AMD right here, 145, Nvidia 156, S&P 613. We are not at all-time highs yet on the S&P. We have not hit all-time highs. We're about 30 cents away to get there. So it looks like it could happen. But we hit in the pre-market, not as the market opened. SoFi right here at 17. Rocket Lab back to 137. Not 137, maybe one day 137. Right now, 37. Rocket Lab, I did not expect to be up 60% on Rocket Lab this year. I really didn't. I bought it just to say, all right, you know what? It's a little SpaceX and I'll just hold it long-term in the portfolio. This has become a massive win for me this year so far. So if it can maintain this momentum and it looks like it wants to head to 40, not too bad. Again, Rocket Lab, expensive on the price of sales. They're at almost 35. They're not profitable yet. So they're going to have to really make sure that these next quarters of earnings have the momentum that can sustain the multiple that they're getting. But as of now, the market seems to be pretty damn excited and all their launches are going very well. Yesterday, they had another successful launch, which was good for Rocket Lab. Archer right here, 1053. Dell right here, 124. MicroStrategy, 386. Palantir down 2%. Robinhood down 1%. Tessie down 1%. Those three that, to be honest, had a monster week. So, I mean, we can't complain too much. Palantir hit all-time highs. So did Hood and Tesla. And Hood still holding 80 to me is amazing. Tesla did get the 350. Tesla's been a little bit of a disappointment. I'm not going to lie. I mean, even seeing the Tesla bulls being like, all right, this is kind of annoying, right? That it would pump this much on robotaxi and then basically kind of give up all those gains. But I think Q2 earnings is what people are thinking about now when it comes to Tesla. SoFi breaking above 17. Let's see if it can hold that momentum. I'll check $18 resistance in a second. Where is HIMS? Are we still moving? HIMS 47.60. HIMS is indeed moving. Then MicroStrategy right here, 387. Bitcoin, I think, is flat. Bitcoin 106. Basically flat. AMD 146. Wow. Did it hit 146 yesterday? I don't think so. I think that's it. Maybe it did, but there you go. Yeah, 146. Yeah, we touched it. 145.50 now. But it did touch. It did touch. Nike's still good, dude. I don't freaking Nike, bro. Goodness gracious. How much? Dude, we would have been up like $1,200, bro. Oh. I wasn't going to hold it for the earnings call, though, dude. It was supposed to be a day trade off of an earnings pump. This was supposed to happen before the earnings call, but it didn't. So I'm going to ask Triple V if he sold. If he didn't, he's up, what, $10 a share times 100? He's up almost $1 million right now. So not bad. Nike, congrats. 71.30. You didn't believe? I did not believe at all, dude. I wanted to protect my money. I didn't want to leave it to whatever they would say on the earnings call. But you got Nike right here at 71. So congrats if you're in Nike. That's green, up 14% and getting some momentum. Google right here, 174. Palantir below 140. All right, Palantir getting hit. Robinhood as well, getting hit. So some of these growth names that had a great week, they're not having the best Friday, which is okay. But they did have a relatively strong week, which is not horrible. Guys, let me just say this again because I shouldn't even have to say this, but I'm saying this again. I haven't said this in a while because I feel like everyone should understand this, but I will say it again. Palantir's worth $330 billion. It's doing less than $4 billion of revenue. So I think we've all kind of moved on from like, it's like a speculative bubble, yada. I mean, some people may still believe that. I don't think it's falling back to like 30, 40 bucks. However, if it takes a breather, you get mad about that, you've got your own issues. That is not Palantir's fault. That is your own fault. I mean, like at the end of the day, this is a very expensive stock. It's the most expensive stock. It's trading at 100 times price to sales, not earnings. We've seen 100 PEs before. This is to sales. There's not been many companies that have traded at those levels. That doesn't mean it has to collapse, but that also does mean that, hey, if it doesn't pump to 150, you can't be upset. So I just personally don't see it as that crazy if it is down. But I don't see any news for it to be down. So this might just be algos on a Friday. People taking some profits here as well. Tesla 323, that's holding on. Nvidia 156. Nvidia's just been a winner all week, dude. Nvidia was at 148 2 days ago. And it was at 140, I think 4 on Monday. SoFi back to 17. So Nvidia's just been a massive winner. Nvidia $7 away from 4 trillion. $7 away from 4 trillion, which would be very fun to see. I do not own Lemonade, but let's check Lemonade. I do not own it. I'm likely not buying it, but Lemonade right here down about 2%. It's up 150% over the past year. So again, I like the thesis that we heard last night. I'm personally not going to be buying it, but this is what you have on Lemonade. Where is Oscar? Oscar is down a little bit, and then UNH is up. UNH 303 currently right now. EU Council President Antonio Costa said told CNBC that NATO's move to more than double defense spending targets to 5% of GDP by 2035 has solved the main US-EU trade tension. All right, well, if that's the case, hopefully that deal, we talked about it a little bit in the morning. If they're going to be spending more on defense, then maybe that is the one barrier to get this deal done. And if it happens, it would be very exciting. SoFi right here, 17. And then Hims, look at that, 48. Let me check resistance. Well, hold on. Let me check 18 resistance on SoFi and then 49 on Hims. So 18 on SoFi, I'm going to guess 150,000 shares. It is 236,000. Okay. And then Hims, 4805, 49 resistance on this one, 2,000 shares. There is no resistance really. So Hims is just a question of volume. I mean, Hims going back to 50, not that crazy if the volume can get there. CYN, so this was the latest meme stock yesterday that ran. It's up 75% today. Of course, why not? It went from 4 to 37. No, it hit 40 at one point. Came all the way down to 10 yesterday. Now it's back to 23. I mean, and they diluted yesterday. Look, if you're trading this, you just got to be careful with it. But it does look like people are trading this. Did I say currently right now again? Did I do it again? See, I'm telling you guys, I don't even know. It just like naturally happens. AMD 147. Wow. AMD wants 150. AMD wants 150. Let me check resistance on AMD. Dude, shout out to the always making dough community. They cannot call you advanced money destroyers anymore. 148 has 53,000 shares. 53,000 for AMD. SoFi is at 1710. There you go. 1710. Amit, I can't believe you sold Nike. Dude, if Nike went down to 55, you would think it's an amazing idea to sell Nike. This is why, like, this is what trading, it's like, it's so binary, right? It's like, if you sold it and it goes up, you look dumb. If Nike went to freaking 50 today and I sold it at 62, like, wow, Amit's really smart. He got out of that trade. Like, this is the nature of trading, right? Like, it is, and it it's such an earnings gamble, especially on earnings, because it's literally binary. But obviously, if we held on, it would have been very nice, but we didn't. And so there you go, Nike at 72, especially in this market, bro. Like, I know Nike is lower than a lot of other stocks, but I think in this market, preservation of capital does matter, because at any moment you could see a little bit of a correction, which means you kind of want some money to buy the dip on that correction. Like, if Robinhood finds its way back to 75 or 72 again somehow, which could happen, right? Like, It hasn't really normalized in the 80s. It's the first week it's even touched the 80s after 4 years. I would want to have some money to buy that dip. But, you know, whatever the Nike CEO said on the call was enough to turn this around, and Nike getting a lot of momentum right here. Palantir 140.39. I was about to say currently right now, dude. I was about to say currently right now. I need a replacement for this. 140.39 today. I think that's what I have to say. Oh, Hims is trying to go for 49, up 5%. I just got the notification from Robinhood. There you go. That's a 15% move for Hims in 24 hours. That's not bad. That is not bad. What did the person from Thailand say about Grab? Okay, so I was texting with them last night. They actually are from New Jersey, so that's how we connected, because they went to Rutgers back in the day. And I said, hey, I see you're in Thailand right now. Any thoughts on the stock? And he said, this is what he said. I'm reading his text. He said, I use it every single day. Food Panda just stopped operating here, which was one of the largest food delivery companies in Thailand. Grab is going to take a lot of that business, and they've also been phasing out a lot of the incentives for people, like discounts on stuff, since they ultimately won the region, because Food Panda and the consolidation is starting to happen. Food Panda left. Discounts, by the way, is important, because if they're reducing incentives, that's good for their margins. And then he said, so there could be a lot of surprise upside this coming quarter. Don't know their business that well, but they seem like they're doing very well. And he said, Food Panda had a lot of the more wealthier customers because they were exclusively English speaking. So now Grab is going to be able to take that market. Hims right here, 49. Hims, 49. It looks like Hims wants 50. Grab right here at 468 at the moment. So what's the takeaway from what he said? Very simple. I don't think Grab's going to have some massive Q2 beat because of Thailand. But if you listen to the Q1 earnings call, what they said on the call was that I think the chief product guy was just like, hey, we're seeing a lot of consolidation in Southeast Asia. This was the fourth company to leave Thailand in the past 10 months. And the biggest critique of Grab is their margins suck, and it's a lot of competition. But that, to me, is the opportunity. Their margins suck and there's a lot of competition. If they win against the competition and the region consolidates, their margins aren't going to suck anymore. And so the long-term thesis is that the operating leverage will increase. And we're already seeing evidence of that in places like Thailand, where one of the biggest companies for the past 20 years, Food Panda, had to leave because they couldn't turn a profit. That, to me, is more indicative of Grab having staying power and eventually a moat more than anything. And so from that perspective, I don't think that means a massive Q2, but I do think that means long-term, that is some of the consolidation we can see. S&P 500, there you go, all-time highs. All-time highs, 613.61. Previous all-time high was 613.20. Folks, we are here. All-time highs, you're seeing SoFi 52-week high, 1723. Tesla, 323. Google trying to get to 174. Reddit goes red, but it was slightly green before. Apple as well is green. TLT, slightly flat. I guess the 10 years up a little bit on the day. But you do have the S&P hitting all-time highs. And I would imagine the NASDAQ, the Qs, also all-time highs. Wow, this thing was 539 yesterday, 547. 546 was the previous all-time high. There you go. Markets like it. Markets absolutely like it. All-time high, even with the tariffs. Even with the tariffs. Not bad. Not bad. Again, I don't know why Palantir's down. It feels just like kind of algos and people selling right here. There might be some reason, but I don't see the reason. But that one is down about 2.3%. Dude, this is pretty incredible. This is pretty incredible to see the market be this resilient. I think it is causing a little bit of worry between a lot of people as well, where Circle right here is down. See, this is nice, right? All-time high on the S&P, but Circle's down. I don't want people to lose money on Circle, but you want to see some of the more frothy things lose some momentum and have that momentum kind of just go back into the S&P. Even Fartcoin was down about 10% yesterday. So it's still worth $1 billion, but it's not, 1.5 billion like it was a couple months ago. And so you're seeing some of the money come out of the ecosystem and go through. Did CYN do another offering? Did they? It's halted. Dude, did they actually do another offering? Dude, it's so funny. The company is like, why are you buying the stock? It doesn't deserve to be here. Everyone's like, no, we don't care. We're going to keep buying the stock. The company's like, okay, we're going to dump shares on you. And they're going to and everyone's like, okay, we'll sell it off today, but then we'll buy the stock again. I mean, this is getting ridiculous. If they did another offering, it's halted right here. It's going to dump as soon as it opens, most likely. I mean, see, this is the stuff that's kind of concerning. Why are people this speculative? You got some names that are trading at incredibly discounted multiples like a Google, but people are speculating on this random company that Nvidia did a partnership with yesterday. And now the market's like, all right, this is the next big thing. And of course, they're diluting, because why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they dilute? They're taking advantage of this. So weird. Very, very weird right here, but we'll see how they open. SMCI goes red. DoorDash 237. Nubank 1338. Let's see who's winning the ETF challenge. Let's pull that up and see who is in the lead for today. Matt, again, is doing very well. And Tanner with Coinbase is doing really good as well. I'm probably going to be down today because Palantir, Hood, and Tesla are down. All right, so Matt's up 13. I'm up 2. Tanner's up 6. Steve's up 2. Chris is up 1.5. Okay, so Chris is last. So it's Matt, Tanner, Steve, Amit, Chris. But everyone's green. Everyone's green. But that's what we got for the current ratings. Matt, Tanner, Steve, Amit, Chris. Palantir back to 140. Robinhood 83.47 right now. Yeah, AMD is carrying me basically. AMD is carrying me. I think the next deep dive, guys, might be this Iran thing. I mean, there is a bit of a community that's forming around this. I am kind of curious. I mean, like, people are very, very excited about this. So I think next Thursday we'll try to figure out why people think this thing could be big. It has to do with a partnership with CoreWeave and all this data stuff around energy. Yes, they're a Bitcoin miner, but they're a lot more than a Bitcoin miner. So I think we'll try to get a deep dive and see what people are saying about that. Cisco right here, 6880. Raytheon 142, Lockheed Martin at 454, Hoodie 83, and then Nvidia 155. Nvidia kind of just maintaining the 150s here on the day. Are we selling Nike now? Look, if I had held all the way through, I would be selling. I'm up 15%. I don't want to hold this long term. But if this is a turn, again, I didn't listen to the call. So the thing is, on the call, if they had a real turnaround story, if the CEO was like, hey, like, this is going to be our year where we dominate, and the street's buying it, then maybe, you play it out and kind of ride it back to like 90 over the next few months. But if I still had my shares, I'd be selling. I would take the 1200 and run. Granted, I would have sold after hours at like 67. So to be honest, I wouldn't have even held this long. But there you go. Nike right here, 72.15 on the day. Where's HIMS? Are we trying to get to 50? Are we trying to get to 50? HIMS right here, 49.07. Let me check resistance. It looks like it wants to get there. AMD is still at 146. And HIMS 50 is 4,000 shares. Yeah, these guys don't have any walls. These guys have no walls. Snapchat moving. Where's Snap? Snap. Wow, Snapchat's up 8. Why is Snapchat up? This thing is just... It always runs at the weirdest times. Edgewater sees low bar for Snap heading into Q2. Okay, so the expectations are so bad that people think they're going to beat expectations. I did not buy the HIMS dip yet. Snapchat right here. All right, getting a little bit of love based on that expectation. MicroStrategy 389. Palantir still down 3%. Googs 174. And then SoFi holding on to 17. Okay, why is Marvell down today? They had a great week. Marvell's down 2. I mean, it is Friday, right? It could just be people taking profits. Yeah, this is I doubt there's any fundamental reason here. Bank of America also put out a note saying they're projecting Marvell growth to be the fastest of the 4 major AI compute suppliers, even though Marvell trades at the lowest valuation. Yeah, look at that. Look at this chart. Marvell will be growing the fastest of the 4 major AI compute suppliers, including Broadcom, others, AMD, and Nvidia. But they are trading at the lowest multiple. I think that's why this one had some momentum. Their AI Investor Day was pretty good. But, that is not being respected, at least today, by the market, even though this week has been a good week. Nvidia right here, 155, AMD 145, S&P. Dude, S&P is about to hit 614. We are legit about to see all-time highs right here. I mean, we're at all-time highs, but we're about to be moving above it. Yeah, even on SPX 61. Healthy pullback. I would agree. If there is any level of pullback in the market, I don't think people would say it's not healthy. 75% of you say we end green to close out the week. S&P is on its way right now to definitely maintain some of that green momentum. And maybe the China trade deal that was signed today, we get more details on that. That could also be helping get some love into the broader market. Okay, what else? What else do we see? Do we have any macro data coming out in 10 minutes? We had PCE, which was, if PCE was good, I think we'd be up even more. But PCE was a little little hot. Oh, we get consumer sentiment. Okay, cool. In 10 minutes, we get consumer sentiment. So the expectation is 60.5. Last time was 52. If that comes in below 60.5, then consumer sentiment is good. And then we'll get the inflation expectations. The market is thinking people are going to expect a year from now or 5 years from now, inflation to be at 4.1%. Remember 2 months ago, it was 7.2%. They only surveyed 200 people, but still. So if that comes in below the expectation, that could also be something that's bullish for the broader market. PCE was at 2.7 versus 2.6. 2.7 versus 2.6. Is Big Bear the next Palantir? I would say no. And again, I would really stay away from chasing this shit. I know like it's a $5 stock and it feels like it's running and there's momentum. I get it. I just personally, and maybe it goes to 10 bucks, maybe it goes to 20. I just personally think it's a very unhealthy mindset when you just see a AI company, see it running, see people talking about it, and then, you know, buy it up. From my understanding of the company, and I have not done a super big deep dive, but they got a couple government contracts and that's why the market is excited. If that's the thesis and then you want to go long for the next 10 years, then go ahead. But if you're expecting it to just run up to 7 to get a quick flip, maybe that could happen, but it's not because they're, you know, doing something that incredible. They're getting some government deals and it is what it is. You know, it's not anything near Palantir or even C3 AI is a better company than Big Bear, just in terms of the deals that they're getting. C3 AI right here, that's at 2482. So again, we saw it with Surf Air Mobility. We saw it with CYN. A lot of these names, they run up and then they just get dumped on you. Who knows if Big Bear does an offering, right? If this thing gets to $7-8. CYN, it opens up 22. Okay, so it's unhalted at 22 right now. Down a little bit from 24, but still green on the day. Is HIMS at 50 yet? Are we going to 50? It looks like it wants 50, bro. There's no shares at 50 either. It could easily see it. So there you go. HIMS right here, 49.38. MicroStrategy at 388 and Microsoft 496. You know, I mean, again, that news of them hiring the former Hood VP of product, I think the market's just thinking, all right, HIMS doesn't really care about Novo. They're moving on. They're like embracing the overall part of their business that has nothing to do with GLP and like innovating on product. And that's enough to create a sentiment that theoretically could at least in the mean term, switch off some of the sentiment. At least it's better than Grab. Yes, Big Bear AI will run more than Grab. Again, like I've said this over and over again, but I want to keep clarifying this. If you're buying Grab for a run to $7-8 in like a month, you're not going to see that. That's just not happening. Grab is a long-term thesis. It really is. And I know that's everyone hates hearing that, but it is a long thesis. Like I am thinking of putting my solo 401k into Grab. I'd rather put my solo 401k at Grab at $4 or $5 versus the S&P 500 because A, I genuinely believe in it. B, I think 10 years from now, it outperforms the S&P. And it's in a region that's only growing when it comes to their GDP growth, 7% a year. But I am starting to really have that long-term thesis. And everything I see, to me, signals consolidation in the region. That's better than pretty much everything else I'm seeing. But that's not going to be a $7 or $8 move. That's not going to happen in 2 days, right? So there are plenty of things that are going to move bigger than Grab. Big Bear is probably going to pump way faster. But like if you see the long-term thesis on Grab and you have patience for the earnings growth, I think you'll be rewarded. Maybe you're not. Maybe the thesis is wrong, but it's way healthier than chasing a circle or a whatever else the thing of the day is running just for the hell of it running. Like I just don't see, you know, that type of excitement there. Palantir is down. Okay, guys, again, I will say this again. Palantir is down 4%. We really need to make sure people do not have the craziest expectations in the world on Palantir and that it deserves to be 150. It is up 90% year to date. It has taken a 4% drop. It could take another 10, 15% drop. It's Palantir. Like it is trading at a very aggressive multiple. People are probably taking profits right here. Unless everyone bought it at 145, which I would hope most people didn't because you've been in this for a long time. This should not be fading you. By the way, this is why I kept saying this is a covered call market. It's a covered call market. Like, all right, if you Palantir covered calls at 140, 145 are printing today because Palantir, instead of the street saying, all right, we're going to give it a $400 billion market cap, the street's like, all right, we're going to pull back 4%. We're going to pull back 4%. So when I see a 4% dip as someone who's been long the name for a long time, that I know a lot of you guys have been, you can't tell me it's actually upsetting you or actually being like, oh, what's going on? It's like, no, like we all know it's expensive, right? I know it's normalized in the triple digits, but we know that it's expensive. We're not hiding from that fact. So if it takes a breather, it takes a breather. Like if Robinhood pulls back to 75, that wouldn't surprise me. It's taking a breather. That's not crazy to see. Is HIMS at 50? HIMS is at 50. There you go. There you go with HIMS right here at 50. And then where's the S&P? Is the S&P running as well? S&P 614. Not bad. So why is Palantir dumping? All right, every question is just going to be, why is it? I don't know. So that's my actual answer. But my unofficial answer is who cares? But yeah, I actually don't know. I'll see if I can get some updates in a second. HIMS right here, $50, 50-30. Yeah, she's running. Dude, that's an 18% move in 2 days. 18% move in 2 freaking days. It's not bad. Not bad. Estee Lauder, how's that doing? EL, that one's been on a tear. That one's up another 4%. Dude, if Burry didn't sell, then he's getting some love. He is absolutely getting some love right here. Okay, so I think this recovery for HIMS now, the question is going to be simple. Hey, how much does the market believe that whatever growth era they're entering into with this new chief product officer is enough to offset some of the lawsuits that are coming up for them? I think one thing is really important to be level-headed on HIMS. Like this thing runs up a lot and it runs down a lot. Like we've seen it. I mean, we literally saw it go from 65 to 53 in 1 day. So like it's up 18% over the past 24 hours today. Next week, who knows? You know, Novo introduces their lawsuit and the market gets bearish. So it's just one of those things you have to keep an eye on. Like it's incredibly volatile. That's why the premiums are so juiced up on this company. And you just have to kind of, you know, realize that it could be running up, but it could also come down if there's any headwinds. But it is nice to see that the market's saying, yeah, this wasn't going to go below 40. We are going to make sure that it maintains the level of valuation that at least people would think is somewhat reasonable. Robinhood right here. Are we down? Robinhood is down 2%. Again, just not surprising. Just not surprising. Yeah, I mean, look, in a market like this, you can't be that emotional about of some of these stocks taking a little bit of a breather. Tesla does go green right here. I mean, even Tesla, bro. Tesla was at 220. It's at 330. Okay, it's down from 350. That's disappointing after Robotaxi. But it could have still stayed at 220, right? Like it's and the earnings definitely didn't warrant maybe it gapping up another $100 like it did. So if Nvidia falls back to 150, is that the worst in the world? Like, no, it was at 90 a couple months ago. So like to me, expectations can't get that bloated where people are saying Palantir needs to get to 150 or Nvidia needs to get to 170 by next week. Because then it's just like you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And it seems like it doesn't make that much sense. Like we just hit 80s and people worried about it going from 85 to 82. Exactly. Or Palantir, we just hit 147 and now people are worried that it's at 138. It's like, all right, it was at 60. That's 20 a year ago. Like this time it was at 20 in June of 2024. Sometimes I hate saying zoom out, but like sometimes you really do got to zoom out. Thank you for the 20 gifted from Barry Matthews. Barry Matthews, appreciate you. Thank you for the 20 gifted. A bunch of you guys just got some gifted memberships courtesy of Barry Matthews. Swift, you got a membership. Mitt, you got a membership. Ian, you got a membership. Josiah, you got a membership. A bunch of you guys. YouTube randomly gives it out to people. So if you're wondering how you get the membership, YouTube just picks 20 random people and gives them a membership. Thank you, Barry, for being here. Thank you for the gifted memberships. You'll see it if your name is like green. You'll see if it pops up. Amit, which one do you prefer buying at prices 1 year out? Palantir, Hood, Grab, or HIMS? I think 1 year out, honestly, Hood or HIMS would be up there in terms of like, I'm thinking, hey, which could theoretically move 40 to 50%. HIMS is the cheapest out of all of them. Like, I love Grab, but again, this is one of those names that's going to take years to play out in the thesis. And when the operating leverage is there, I think the operating leverage will grow. Now, granted, I do think Grab could be $8, $10 by the end of next year. So Grab is up there on that list for me as well. Hood and Palantir, I think, are great, but I just think, you know, they've had 2 years of a massive run. So the idea that they would have a continuation of that run going into 2026, I mean, maybe it's possible. It's just hard to expect that, right? But HIMS objectively is cheap, right? $10, $12 billion company. And then Grab 50% of market cap in cash. If they can really show the earnings growth, which I think is coming, then I think Grab will do better. All right, we got consumer sentiment. What do we have? Let's see. It should be out right now. Let me pull this up. It's 10 a.m. Let's see how the market's reacting real quick. S&P before we see it. S&P is green. Looks like the consumer sentiment is relatively good. Maybe not too bad. Okay, so what do we have? What do we have? Consumer sentiment is, wow, 60.7 versus 60.5. That's a beat. Okay. Inflation, 4% versus 4.1. That's a beat. 58.1 versus 58.4. That's a miss, but that's on the consumer expectations finals. That's basically within the margin of error. So but even the beat is like by 0.2 and the expectation beat is by 0.1. So it's not a massive beat. But it is indeed a beat. Not sure if the street's going to love that or hate that or if they care that much, but there you go. They started asking Republicans. Yeah, S&P is green. It's not moving like crazy, but it is green. Yeah, I mean, look, inflation expectations, again, one would want them to be well below 4%. Hopefully we don't have 4% inflation next year. At least it's not 7%. But it is lower than 4.1. So it's kind of a nothing burger. I don't know if the market's going to care that much about it. 614 right here on the S&P, hitting 615. Market's not caring that much. Palantir right here, 138, crashing 50% on the day. Robinhood right here, 82.84, and then Nvidia still holding 156, and HIMS is at 50. Yes, why is Palantir crashing to zero? That is the question. That is the question. All right, so like those inflation numbers, not horrible. Let's get a little bit of coverage on that, and then we'll keep going from there.
In May. Either way, I think you have to look at this number and wonder about the strength of the consumer. Remember, we had all that soft data where consumer confidence plunged, and we were wondering, is it going to come out in the hard data? Well, this would argue that, yes, there was a pullback, because if you look at some of the categories and the spending numbers, it was pretty broad. I mean, it was across the board, from durable goods to cars to apparel to financial services. They were all down in the spending numbers. So that's the stag. That's the economic challenge part of this report. We're showing now the inflation part of the report. Well, now we're showing spending, but inflation. So inflation showed a mild increase, just a tad. We're talking tenths of a percent here, especially on core. So the overall number to watch is the 2.3%. That's the May inflation number. Okay. Remember, we were getting down to 2.1%, which the target for the Fed is 2%. So you don't want to see that number go up, but it was pretty much on target. The core number was 2.7%, which was a little bit higher than where it was before. Bottom line, mild increase in inflation. Don't want to make too much of that, especially because the Fed's worried about it. It will give the hawks some reason to think, that's going to go up.
Though, even though it's,
No, it for sure.
It's not much, but it's something.
It's an increase, and maybe more importantly, it indicates that the progress has stopped, at least this month, right? But Chair Powell himself this week said, if we're going to see tariff inflation, we're going to start seeing it in June, July. So there's not much evidence that it's like some widespread tariff inflation. So let's watch that. I think if you're on the Fed and you're worried about inflation, you can say, look, the progress has stopped and we're worried that inflation's coming. I think if you're on the Fed and you want rate cuts, like a Waller Bowman, you could say, look, the we need to get ahead of an economy weakening.
What about the stag side?
That's the weakening of the economy.
I know. Well, what is your level of concern there?
It's not. I mean, the economy is not cratering. We're still tracking second quarter growth. We'll get an update later this morning from Atlanta Fed, because this will take it down a little, but it's still north of 3% coming into today. We're talking about.
So, I mean, they're right. The inflation expectations, even though it's a little bit of a beat, we are getting some stalling progress on PCE. And if we didn't, I think this market would be ripping even higher. Now, S&P is still up 0.5%. So S&P is still having a great day right now. Like a really good day right here, even after this week, up 0.5%. But I could only imagine if PCE came in lower than expected, this thing would be crazy. This thing would be absolutely crazy. So, we just have to see ultimately how this plays out. But the fact that PCE was a miss and that consumer sentiment was basically a nothing burger and the S&P is up 0.5%, not bad, bro. To give context, again, the S&P averages about 8% a year. So when you're up 0.5% in a day, you're making some serious progress to that 8% a year if you can continue on that momentum. Now, obviously, the past couple of years, we've been blessed with 20% years. And this year, we got a lot of work to get to 20% again, because we're basically at 4%. And it's, basically halfway down to the year. But if we do get anything resembling 2024, 2023 in terms of double-digit percentages, then this thing's going a lot higher. And I think the market's just kind of recognizing that. And they're not letting any of the idiosyncratic data or things or narratives kind of stop that momentum, because ultimately they want to get exposure. If there's not a black swan, if there's not this boogeyman that's hiding, that is going to take down this market or really meaningfully reduce earnings growth, then I think we go higher. I think the market just sees this as something that does indeed go higher. Matthew Stevick, thank you for the gifted 50. You guys are being way too kind this morning. 50 gifted memberships. 50 of you guys just got some memberships. At the same time, I got a HIMS notification that HIMS is at 51. So, Matt, I don't know if you're a HIMS bull, but maybe you gave 50 gifted memberships for HIMS hitting 50. But there you go. HIMS 51. Matthew with a gifted 50. Thank you for the gifted membership. A bunch of you guys just got those gifteds right here in the chat. Alex Rodriguez as well. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the 10 Dolores. Thank you, Barry, for the 20, and Matthew for the gifted 50. Again, you guys get nothing if you're a channel member. It's not like there's no exclusive content or anything like that. There's no feet picks or anything, but you get to support the channel for like $5 a month. So that's it. HIMS 5110, 10% back-to-back 10% days for Himmy HIMS. Back-to-back 10% days for Himmy HIMS. And then SoFi, not stopping either. SoFi 1730. 18 has 230,000 shares. 18 has 230,000 shares. Let's check our SoFi options and see how they're doing. Oh, they're doing good. They are doing not too bad. So again, we have the 1520s. If Noto can get us 20 by the end of this year, we are going to see some love. And so we're up about 540% on this one. 20, let's see it. Let's see it, Noto. Crypto's coming back. You got remittances coming on, rate cuts. I mean, it feels like 20. It's not crazy to expect it happening. And if it does, this one will help pay my taxes next year. Palantir right here, 139, slightly coming back up. Tesla right here, 326, and then Grab. All right, Grab getting some love, 474, up about 1.5%. Dude, and I'm serious, dude. I'm looking at my solo 401k, which I'm going to be able to contribute. I don't know how much money, maybe like 50, 60 grand. But if you have a small business and don't have a solo 401k, you really need to look at it. It is one of the greatest tax advantage tools in America for small business owners. You get to write off the entire amount from your taxes after your expenses, and you get to contribute it, and it gets to grow. You pay taxes at the end when you're 60, but the point is you get to use the tax benefit right now. So, and you can contribute a maximum of up to like 70,000 a year. I'm looking at that and I'm like, dude, I could buy the S&P at 22 times, or I could buy Grab at $5 a share, knowing that I legit don't want to open the solo 401k and day trade or none of that for literally the next 15 years. I think Grab is going to be one of those companies in the Southeast Asian region that has the tailwind of 7% GDP growth for the next decade that theoretically should be able to outperform the S&P. I mean, so like I think Grab gets to $8, which is a double, before the S&P gets to 1,200, which would be your double. You know, and I think it's relatively de-risked at trading at 50% cash. So I'm going to see if I end up doing that, but I do think there are some opportunities here that are undervalued. Nvidia right here, 156, Tesla 327, and then Palantir right here, 139.50. Yeah, that's a SEP IRA. That's a SEP IRA. Now, granted, maybe it's not the entire 401k. I mean, the whole point of the 401k is to be safe, right? And because I don't own the S&P at all. I'm all individual stocks. So I do believe in, you know, having that nest egg that is just pure safe, DCA into the S&P, and you don't try to go for the moonshot or anything like that. But I don't think Grab's going for a moonshot, man. You know, if I'm not going to touch it for the next 10 years, and I see their margins are inflecting and they're growing and they're literally in the infancy of their growth, like I kind of feel like that's relatively de-risked. But, you know, obviously just owning the index is one of the safest things. AMD right here, 146. Is HIMS going for 52? Let's check resistance, 5150. I mean, maybe it wants 52. Maybe it wants 52. Dublin, yeah. Which one is Dublin first? Dude, if I go to Ireland, I'm going to have so much fun at the pubs. Dude, 52 has 1,700 shares. There's like zero resistance on this stock. Absolutely zero resistance in the stock. So if the momentum's there, she's going to run. She is going to run. Robin right here, 83.79, trying to come back up from 82 as well. I've had my SEP IRA since 1999, also Roth IRA. Yeah, dude, it is absolutely one of the most important tax advantage accounts if you have an LLC in the United States that people need to look into. Like, I can't believe I just realized it was like, like at the end of last year, I realized that it's a thing. And I've had an LLC for like the past, 8 years. I could have been using that as a tax advantage account. This is the shit they don't teach you in high school or college. They're freaking teaching you how to speak Espanol, when in reality, I could be contributing up to $70,000 a year, getting a tax write-off. Like, grab PE is 450 though. Remember, as they grow, that PE is going to come down. It's like the most important thing to understand about growth stocks. As the stock grows, that PE gets cut aggressively if the stock can aggressively grow. So you have to be right about the growth thesis. But if they can grow earnings the way I think they can, which is for the next decade, close to 30, 40% every year, if that's the expectation, that PE is going to be irrelevant right now, right? This is why investors buy stocks with high PEs, because they're expecting growth. That growth comes in, the PE comes down, stock price appreciates against that growth. And that's kind of the classic, philosophy of a growth investor. It doesn't always work, obviously. You can get a stock that doesn't grow, and then the PE just looks ridiculous. This is what people are saying about Tesla. People are saying Tesla's PE looks ridiculous because it's not growing, and they're not wrong. They're not growing. They're negative growing. But the story of robotaxi is so exciting for growth that people are willing to bet on it. And that's kind of why Tesla maintains that momentum. I've been saying that about college and high school for years. I'm in my 60s. I don't have any faith that school system is going to change, but nonetheless, that stuff matters more. The tax advantage account for LLCs is a solo 401k. If you look it up, do some research on it, solo 401k. It's a very, very, very important account that if you are a business owner in America and, you have to pay self-employment tax, which is 15.3%, this is one of those tax advantage accounts that's way better than a Roth IRA. And you should still have a Roth IRA, but this one is just very beneficial to solo business owners. 5155 on HIMS. That's up 11.3%. So that one's still holding. SoFi again, 1730. And then HIMS is trying to go 52. Is Nike still moving? Nike, it was at 72. Nike's holding 72, 71.85. 71.85. Is your LLC called AK Media? It is not called AK Media. There's no such thing as AK Media. MicroStrategy right here at 391, ASTS 51. All right, so market's kind of cooling out now. Nothing too crazy. S&P still holding all-time highs, though. But the general market is chilling out. By the way, shout out to Tom Lee, Granny Shots, that ETF outperforming all the other ETFs that are out there that are managed by fund managers. So look at that. Look at this. And I don't own this, by the way. So I don't own. I'm a fan of Tom Lee. I like him. I think he's someone who has correctly gone against the grain and has had the courage to stay with his conviction. But he's completely outperforming the S&P and everyone else. And he has a lot of these big shots. He has Palantir, he has Tesla, he has Hood. I mean, he has some of those names. Now it's balanced with things like Progressive Insurance and, things that are a little bit more boring. He has Netflix. That's been a great call. But one of his ETF is actually doing well. And the problem with launching an ETF publicly, it's like basically what Chris, Matt, Tanner, Steve, and I did. Like, you're judged on it right now, right? Your picks are literally judged and your aggregate performance is judged. And the scrutiny that you get, like look at a Kathy with ARK, right? Which, by the way, we haven't talked about. It's kind of making a little bit of a comeback. It's at 70. This thing was at freaking 20 at one point. Look at this chart right here. Again, all time, it's still well below when you zoom out, but little bit of a recovery. The point is you're judged heavily. So, being judged on paper, who cares? But when you have real money, when you have, Kathy was managing 30 billion at one point, you have to deal with how people think of you. So with Tom Lee putting out his picks in public and getting ready to deal with all the public scrutiny that he would get to outperform is really cool, because it is definitely not an easy game to win here. Yeah, there is a high expense ratio, 0.75. The thing is, I looked at his picks. The reason I didn't buy it is because I don't see his picks as like super differentiated in some like thematic that's different. Like, I like how he's managing the portfolio. I think it's strong, but I don't think it's like this is really unique. And again, this is kind of the hard part with ETFs. The reason Kathy raised so much freaking money in 2021 is because she convinced the world that she knew innovation and no one else didn't. And so she was forced to buy bullshit, right? Zoom, Roku, all this nonsense that like really did, like the companies that just Teladoc, they didn't really have a moat. But if she had started buying Max 7, people would be like, oh, well, you're just a NASDAQ. Why should we give you money? And so like she had to, maybe she could have done a bounce of the NASDAQ, which is like actual innovation with Nvidia, et cetera, with her speculative plays, but she went so speculative. And then she got out of Palantir and she bought more Roku. Like she didn't even hold on to like the real winners. That's what got people to say ARK was just a joke. So with Tom Lee, he's not going that speculative route, but he is going a little bit more on the granny shot vibe with like a hood and a Palantir and a Tesla versus just, buying Google at these levels. Google right here, 174. Currently right now, SoFi 1740. 1750 would be nice to see if we can break above that. Also, yeah, HIMS, bro, the shorts doubled, or not doubled, they quadrupled down over the past 48 hours. So this 20% move in 2 days, I mean, this could also be potentially something that gets them to cover. Now, granted, I don't think the shorts are going to trust this move. If anything, they might double down from here. But maybe this could get a little squeezy. We need Dudham to really come out and drop another piece of news outside of what he dropped yesterday to, I think, get them to scare them. Did I say currently right now again? Of course I did. Is there a ticker for CRN? There's no ticker. We need to go public with the ticker for AK Media and do CRN. Dude, that needs to be the ticker, dude. That needs Goodness, bro. I mean, at what price are you selling your HIMS? I don't plan on selling it. Dude, my average is 55, or 54.50 or whatever. I don't plan on selling this thing. I really did buy it with a long-term thesis. I really did. So I'm holding. And we will keep it and just kind of track its progress. Grab right here, 475. That's up 1.6. GameStop 24, Intel 23, and then Rock Lab 3678 on the day. Could have said currently right now, but instead I said on the day. I need something to end off my sentence. That's the thing. Like I need, before I transition from sentence to sentence, I need to end off the current sentence. And so I need a phrase to end it off with. And it ended up being currently right now, which makes no sense. But now it's a habit. Now it's hard to get out of it. All right, Dan Niles on CNBC. Let's see what he's buying, if he's bullish, bearish, and let's get his thoughts.
It's how investors interpret the data. So you could have looked at the personal income numbers coming in at negative 0.4% versus expectations of up 0.3, and you could have looked at personal spending also being negative 0.1 versus positive 0.1 and gone, oh my God, this shows that there was a big pull forward in demand and it's falling off. But the market, and you had PCE come in about a tenth higher than what people expected. But the market didn't sell off. It continued to rally, and I think expectations of a rate cut have moved up even more. So, my view is with the market at these levels, you're still going to have a good Q2 earnings season for the same reasons I thought Q1 earnings were going to be good. Because you've got the dollar, which at one point was at 110. It averaged 107 in Q1. It's now averaging 100 in Q2, and it's sitting at about 97. And you got to remember, S&P 500 companies get about 40% of their revenues from international markets. So that's going to be a huge tailwind for them. And I saw the numbers this morning. It makes me wonder, but I still think there is some demand pull forward going on as well. Obviously, geopolitical has gotten a little bit better. Tariff deals are still coming before July 9th. And I think investors still think the Fed's going to cut. And there's performance chasing, quite honestly, as well. I mean, money market funds have hit all-time record highs at $7 trillion. Believe it or not, month over month or year over year, retail's going up faster than institutional. And so I think you're going to have performance chasing by both. And that's why I feel like, you know what, you kind of have to forget about valuations for now. And then we're going to get to Thanksgiving, and I think things are going to hit a wall. But for right now, I'm really enjoying the ride.
Well, wait, so forget about valuations for now, but what happens around Thanksgiving?
Well, I tried to set you up for that question, David.
Thank you, Dan. I was listening.
Thanks for taking the softball. The thing that you have to remember is in Q1, what happened? U.S. GDP, if you look within it, imports were up 38% year over year. And U.S. GDP is 25% of global GDP. If that's not pull forward, I don't know what is. And that's both companies such as Apple airlifting 600 tons of iPhones to get in front of the tariffs, as well as consumers that are going, for high-priced items like cars or PC.
Tim's 1 cent away from 52. Didn't crack 52 yet. It's at 51.99, but it looks like it's getting ready to crack it.
These are smartphones. Maybe I want to buy it now in front of what I know are going to be prices going up as we get towards the holiday season. But if you bought a car, smartphone, PC, you're not going to be buying one during the holiday season. And remember, for a lot of retailers, especially electronics retailers, 30 to 35% of revenues for the year are done in November and December, and 15% of that is jammed into 5 days between Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday. And I think what you're going to find out is, much like earnings are coming in better than you thought because of the dollar and pull forward in Q1 and Q2, I think you're going to have a problem around Thanksgiving because of that. And so,
all right, so his thesis is similar to some of the bearish theses that I've read across some of these equity reports, like Bank of America, and some of the general bear cases I've read, which is that there is going to be too much momentum going into the summer. That's going to get hit by the end of the summer going into September. You're going to get a pull forward of demand that's going to reduce the growth numbers. We're going to get Atlanta Fed GDP growth, I think, in like an hour. So we'll see their Q2 expectations. And then on top of that, you're going to get a, what some people are saying, stagflationary scenario where inflation is not meaningfully going to deaccelerate. We saw that today with the PCE numbers. It was good, but not really good enough. And you're going to get growth that slows down. And as a result, boom, you get stagflation, or at least you get some level of slowing down in growth. And then even if you do get a rate cut, it's not enough to compensate for the rate of growth cuts, or for the rate of growth declining. I think that's an okay thesis, but I think that's missing one critical component, or two critical components. Number one, trade deals. That should increase a lot of growth and reduce tariff rates to reduce inflation expectations. And then number two, deregulation. If we deregulate the crap out of the economy, we're going to get a lot more growth. And if that happens, I think that's something that can't be denied. Whoa, Nvidia, 157. 157. That's all-time highs on Nvidia, right? Whoa, that came out of nowhere, bro. This was at like 155 for the past 40 minutes. That's all-time highs, right? Yeah. That is all-time highs. Market cap on Nvidia now is 3.83 trillion. So it's less than $200 billion away from 4 trillion. And then 158 resistance, 240,000 shares. 240,000 shares. Wow. Look at those green candles. I don't know what spiked right there while we were listening to Dan Niles, but boom, that spike immediately jumped it up. So again, going back to his point, I just don't think his point has merit going into a typical Santa Claus rally. Like, I think there's plenty of levers that the White House can pull. Now, if the labor market weakens, I guess he has a point. If inflation is like not just sticky, but like aggressive to the upside, then he has a point. But if we don't see that, I don't know. I don't think that from that bearish perspective, it makes a ton of sense to say end of the year is when things get really that bad. SoFi right here, 1737, Googs 174, Grab 475, and then Nvidia 157. Nvidia wants 4 trillion. Nvidia wants 4 trillion, and there's 7 trillion on the sidelines that's looking at Nvidia right now thinking, hey, maybe it's time to take a chance on the what is essentially most important company when it comes to AI. If you do have some covered calls, you definitely might have to roll those. I think my mom has a covered call on Nvidia. I think she has 149, so she might have to roll that out maybe a week or a couple months. Here's the thing. The other thing that's important to understand about covered calls. Again, they work when the stock is flat and you're trading the premium in between the flatness of the stock. If the stock's going on a run and you believe, all right, Nvidia, blue skies, it's ready to go, I think rolling out 4 or 5 months into the future at a very conservative strike. So let's say your strike is at 145 on Nvidia. You're obviously underwater. Nvidia's at 155. Let's say you don't think it's really going to come back to 150. You don't think it's going to be within the margin of safety of your covered call range. You roll that sucker to January 2026, 180, even if it's like you barely get any premium, but you hold on to your shares because if you believe Nvidia is going on its run, you'd rather not lose the shares, right? So I think, when people say you get underwater on a covered call, it's bad. To me, it's not bad. It's just a question of, do you want to lose those shares? Because if you do, then that's fine. But if you want to keep those shares, share appreciation matters more than the covered call premium. And if you can afford to roll it out a few months, 30 to 40% above the current price for nothing, for even a net credit, then that's not the worst idea. Now, if you're strictly only focused on income, then it is what it is, right? Then you just care about it. But if you care about the shares appreciating, then you save your shares and just keep it go higher. How long before the expiration date do you wait to roll? You want to collect as much data as possible. So theoretically, you would wait until the last day or at least a couple days. But if the strike price is usually you roll as soon as the stock gets above your break even. So if you got paid $2 a contract for a $145 call, your break even's at 147. By the time Nvidia is at like 149, 148, you probably want to consider rolling, right? Because it's just going to get harder and harder to roll as the stock runs. So to me, again, people think you lost the trade if you had an Nvidia one covered call at 145 and it's at 150. It's like, no, you just need to decide, do you want to let those shares go away at 145 because you got in it for the premium and for the cash flow? You can do that. Or do you want to save those shares and you can roll up and out a couple months? Yeah, you're stuck in for a couple months in the contract, but if Nvidia is going up, who cares? You're stuck for 5 months, but Nvidia gets to 165, 170, and you're up 30, 40 bucks on your shares, and you have 100, 200 shares. I mean, you're making, $4,000 or $5,000. Like that, like the share appreciation will massively outweigh your covered call premium. And that's okay. Now, if it goes to 250 and you set your cover call for 180 in January, then you might just have to take the L, right? Because it just went way past your expectations. It is what it is. But if you think it's reasonable that at 4 trillion, Nvidia is not going to go to 5 trillion overnight after it touches 4 trillion, then you can roll out easily and not have to lose your shares, in my opinion. SoFi right here, 1734, grab again, 475. Disney is actually making a little bit of a run, up 0.5%, 122. Duolingo at 405. This one's been demolished all week. I still don't have a reason why Duolingo is down this week. I still have no clue. No one's told me why, but it's down like 20% this week. Boeing right here, 209. That's up 4%. Boeing making a little bit of a move. APLD, this one was hot stuff 2 weeks ago. Now no one cares. 1072 up 1.5%. Again, they have the CoreWeave partnership, which is really good, but the stock is up a lot from the lows. CoreWeave right here, 161. And then Nebius, how is that doing? That is above 50. That is 5187. ASTS, 5189. And Rocket Lab, 3689 on the day. Yeah, I literally think Duolingo's down because of my language take. I really do. None of you guys in the chat have been able to give me a single sentence that is reasonable to explain why Duolingo had the week that it did. I don't get it. I don't get it. This thing was freaking 475 a week ago. Like what? 13% on 14%? What is this, bro? Like why? Someone tell me why. Like, did I kill the green owl? Did ChatGPT come out with a competitor? Because like what exactly? I don't get it. I'm so confused why the market took this one down. But it did. Nvidia 157, dude. If she goes for 158, she'll be $3 away from 4 trillion. $3 away from 4 trillion. Their subscription is too expensive. Yeah, but the majority of their revenue is advertising. They don't even have I think it's like 95% ads, 5% of people pay for the product. I don't think the street woke up and was like, hey, Duolingo is too expensive on the subscription. Like there had to be some fundamental move or some downgrade, but I didn't see any downgrades. And so I'm very confused why that happened. According to Tate, it's because you're gay. True. That could also happen. That could be the reason. I did it with Robinhood at a $42 strike. Now I'm stuck in a contract that expires in 2027. Yeah, look, that stuff happens if the stock just completely blows past your limit, which you have to be able to accept, right? It is what it is. But even that, right? Like, let's say you had a $42 strike and then you rolled up to like $100 in 2027. If Robinhood goes from 42 to 100 in 2027, and you've collected $60 per share just for holding it for 2 years, you're not going to be able to milk any premium off those shares. But whatever premium you would get is insignificant compared to the share appreciation if Robinhood does get to 100 and stays at 100 by 2027. So even if you push out calls months or years in advance, if the underlying stocks appreciate and you get to hold on to that appreciation, that is what matters. Now, if they blow even way back, let's say Robinhood goes to 250, then it's like, all right, you lost the trade, right? Because at worst, you have to sell it at 100. But even then, I think you can keep rolling up and get more than 100. But the point is, like, if you don't expect it to be that much of a monster move, then you're gonna be okay. And this is what happened with TJ, right? When he's talked about this many times. He had a lot of shares of Palantir at 6. He wrote a covered call for 12 a year out for January 2025. We saw what happened, right? Palantir got to 80, And so it just completely blew past his covered call strike. He thought, okay, I'm not going to expect it to double in a year. It freaking quadrupled. And so there's nothing you could do. Or not quadrupled, it more than 10x from 6 to 80, right? Some of those you just lose. You got to take the L. But in other situations, if it's not going to make that much of a move, there is a shot to hold on to it. Why is Palantir down? I have no clue. Honestly, I don't see anything fundamental here on Palantir right now. Drop in international tourism due to global hostilities. Do you think that could be the bear case for Duolingo? That would be weird. That would be very weird if that's the reason. Chat needs to understand Palantir doesn't just go straight up. Yes, agreed. And granted, I get Palantir's literally just gone straight up. The thing about Palantir, again, dude, Palantir is different from Tesla in that we have only had one major drawdown. Two. One was in 2022. That was the whole market. So it's not independent of the market. The second one was Liberation Day, which was, again, the whole market. Palantir has not had that 30, 40, 50% drawdown that happens independent of everything else. Tesla's had that like 17 times. So Tesla investors are used to it. Palantir, outside of the macro being bad to the entire market, Palantir has maintained momentum. And I don't expect it to have an independent drawdown of 50%. I mean, unless they mess up earnings. But if that's not the case, then these 4 or 5% moves, like, you just can't be that upset at it, given it's held on as much as it had so well. Nvidia 157, still holding on as well, and getting a little bit of love right here at all-time highs. How was the Lemonade stream? It was good. I think people enjoyed it. I'm not going to be buying Lemonade. I wasn't fully convinced after the end of the stream, but I do think there is a thesis. I just think that thesis, might be not as exciting, at least for me, when it comes to AI as the differentiator. AMD right here, 145.84 right now as well. All right, let's finish up with Dan Niles, and then we'll keep going from there. And we'll see some other headlines we got.
So I watch the data every day, see how investors react to it, and try not to look at where the valuations are on my screen, because right now people are price insensitive when you've got FOMO. But
you got FOMO and you got MOMO. I mean, we have a momentum market, right? Isn't that what we're really talking about here?
Well, yeah, but when you got $7 trillion in money market funds driven by retail investors more than even institutional, there is still some FOMO out there. And you can create a scenario where you go, well, the Magnificent Seven as a group are up 2% year to date. Now, obviously, there's a lot of dispersion within that. But if you want to go chase something, you can create a scenario where, well, Apple's still down a bunch and they're having a good quarter. So I'm going to ignore the fact that they don't have really any play on AI, and I'll go buy that. You can try to buy all the laggards. And I think there's going to be some of that going on, especially, I do think Apple's going to have a good quarter. It's driven by not good reasons, but they'll have a good quarter. And so you can construct scenarios for chasing still here.
But you've liked other things going into this year. I think regional banks was one of your picks, mid cap, value.
I think.
Can you still bet on that with the economy weakening?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have the Palantir news why it's down. Yeah, I think this is the reason. So 6 people were arrested at a protest of Palantir around the company's immigration policies, New York City. Maybe this is the reason, folks. 6 protesters who demonstrated in front of New York City offices on Palantir a Thursday morning. So this was yesterday. The demonstrators had gathered to bring attention to the controversial firm and the work it does around deportation of immigrants. The protesters stood in front of the Palantir offices on Manhattan's Avenue of the Americas, linking arms to block entrance into the building. Wow, I didn't hear about this. This was yesterday. I guess it's getting reported today. I heard nothing about this yesterday. At one point, several demonstrators enter the lobby of the building holding up signs that read Palantir powers ICE. Yeah, this is I've been to this office before. This is definitely the building. We met a lot of physical violence during the arrest itself. I personally was not planning on being arrested. I was just using my body to physically stand there, and myself and others around me were repeatedly shoved and pushed to the ground and were grabbed. Several police officers were really physical in pushing us around. They attended the protest because they want to stop Palantir from enabling agencies that are hurting and disappearing my neighbors. We're disrupting Palantir's business as usual because producing AI that makes fascism stronger and more efficient does not belong in New York. Palantir is in the business of tracking and surveilling all of us. It's a responsibility to track them. They're in bed with the Trump administration, ICE, IDF, and from others, from NYC to LA to Gaza. Palantir is one company making unspeakable horrors happen. All right. Well, there you go. I'm laughing at just like the sheer nature of the fact that you ask any of these people what Palantir actually does, they're not going to be able to give you an answer. I mean, now you could tell why Mamdani won in New York, bro. This is the sentiment in New York. This is the sentiment. Palantir is enabling fascism. I mean, look, you might agree or disagree with that. I personally would disagree. I think a lot of these people, if you ask them some questions around what exactly Palantir does, if you ask them, hey, you know, did Obama deport a lot more people than Trump? Why weren't you protesting back then? You know, there's a lot of questions. You can get deeper into this in the nature of Palantir. But you're going to have protesters do what they got to do. So maybe that's why the stock's down 3%. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a convincing enough reason for this to be down. It's not a convincing enough reason. Dude, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I did read an article a couple of days ago that did say that the Palantir protest might be because someone's funding them. I mean, it seems potentially likely that there are some groups out there that are funding this stuff. We know in the NHS in the UK, this happened with Open Society. There were plenty of paid protests and paid attacks, paid social media bot attacks. We've been through that in 2023 against Palantir to not get that UK deal. They ended up getting it because the UK government realized, hey, we kind of want the NHS to be more efficient versus worrying about what protesters have to say. I think protesting is fine. I think it's the beauty of freedom of speech in America. I'm just like, when you ask some of these people what exactly they're protesting, how this stuff is playing out, how exactly Palantir is surveilling and spying on you and doing all these things, they can't give an answer. They just can't. And a lot of it is rooted in ideological dogmatism, which is, you know, the nature of how some people think. I will say, though, Mamdani is getting a lot of attention. This guy was on CNN last night. He's been all over the media. He's been getting millions and millions and millions of views. And, you know, you're starting to see what he thinks. Here's a video from a couple of years ago. This is why people, again, are a little worried from different angles on how he thinks about violence as a concept.
Oftentimes, we've even found as legislators, when we go into these courts, the term violent crime is even used when people are stealing packages. Violent crime is even used when people are accused of burglary and there happens to be a housing unit in that same dwelling. So violence is an artificial construction. And we have to be very clear that what is happening here with these district attorneys, that is violence. That is violence at the highest degree.
Violence is an artificial construct. Again, this is what New York is endorsing. So I think seeing these protesters in Palantir's office in New York, I mean, it makes a lot of sense because if that's kind of the ideology that a lot of New Yorkers are having here, you know, that may be the core concept that they want to embrace as well. Maybe that's why Palantir is down 3%. It's hard to believe that, but maybe people saw this protest headline and they were like, all right, there's too many negative pieces of news on Palantir, and so they're selling it. But that's what you got. That's what you got. All right, 138.95. Again, Dan Ives' thesis, or not Dan Ives, Dan Niles' thesis is just he sees a pull forward coming in Q4 that could decrease earnings. Nvidia right here, 157. SoFi, 1741. Googs, 174. Then you got Meta right here holding on to 731. Yeah, this is the last Friday of Q2 and H1. So, I mean, you could have some wonky things happen towards the end of the day as options are expiring as well. I mean, last week was quad witching, but this is, for all intended purposes, the last day of Q2. Next week, we have one more day. We did get the Robinhood metrics yesterday as well, which was important. So again, I'll be streaming at 11 a.m. Eastern on Monday, their new event, which is going to be really important. We ran the numbers with Tanner last night on his Excel model for Robinhood, and equities did 142 in June, options 132, crypto 7 billion. This is only for the first 15 days, so we still have 5 days left. But it looks like on Tanner's model, they're going to do 940 million in revenue. I think he's being too aggressive on the net interest income. I think it's going to be more like 910, but the analysts are only expecting 890. So even if we come in at 900, we're going to beat. And if we come in anywhere near Tanner's expectations at 940, it's going to be a massive beat. So I think whatever they're going to announce on Friday or on Monday is going to be very exciting for their crypto ambitions. But if they can back it up with some of these growth numbers, then that could be very exciting for Robinhood. AMD at 145. Where's HIMS? HIMS 50.70. That's chilling out a little bit, just below that 51 level. Seems like some people are taking profits. What about Nike? Are people taking profits? Nike still at 71.50, but it is down from the highs of the day. JJ, thanks for the super chat. This is what it felt like to be a Tesla investor for the past 5 years. Continual blatant lies. Yeah, now I'm starting to feel it, bro. I'm starting to feel a little bit of what the Tesla investors felt. And you guys have Elon, and like the media hates Elon. So it's a whole different world that you have to deal with in terms of the media attacks. But this is the first time as a Palantir investor on a wide scale that I saw the media really create a narrative around the company. Because in 2022, they did it, but no one cared in 2022 because the stock was at $6. But now, $300 billion company, you say something against them, everyone starts to pay attention. And again, I think protesting is fine. I think having a conflicting difference of opinions is fine. It's just when you ask some of these people what exactly they're upset about, it's a lot of headlines that they just regurgitate, given there's not that much substance to it. Again, 158 on Nvidia is about 230,000 shares. So there might be a shot. Dougie, thank you, Doug. I'm just seeing this. Thank you for the gifted 5 memberships. Appreciate you, Dougie. Thank you for being here. I think Dougie's coming to Miami. Again, we're doing Miami end of August. Should be a great time. Should be fun. He's been following the channel for like, how many years? 4 years now? I don't think I've ever met Doug in person. I've never met Doug in person. He wasn't in Vegas last time. So this will be the first time we meet in Miami. So it should be fun. I'm Beneficial. He'll be there in Miami. He's another mod in the chat. He's been here for basically the past couple of years. He's been with me on this hoodie train. Tess, going to be preaching the quantum thesis in Miami. She should be there. So Miami should be fun. It should be a party. It should be a fun party. It should be a lot of familiar faces. And I think Chris is definitely going to be there. And then maybe we can get Tanner and Matt to come there as well. So it should be a fun time. Nvidia, wow, 157.50. It's breaking above some of these levels. Oh, we got Laura coming. All right, cool. Laura's coming to Miami. I got to meet Laura in the Bay Area. It's going to be fun, bro. Miami will be fun. It'll be fun. I'm still finalizing the location, but I think it'll be cool. I haven't been to Miami in a few years, so I am also looking forward to it. When Bitcoin hits 300K, I'll be coming to a meetup. Dude, we were supposed to, all of us in the Palantir community, we were thinking of Vegas when Palantir gets to 100. But like so many of us were like, all right, 2030 Vegas when we're at 100. No one talks about going to Vegas anymore because now it's just like, well, it's way above 100. Like, do we really need to do Vegas for this? Like now the expectations have changed. But we thought it would be a grind to get to 100 over the next 10 years. And it's like, it's here. So the whole Vegas idea is like not something we think about that much anymore. But I think Miami should be fun. We should have a lot of familiar faces and it should be pretty good. Siege, thank you for the $20 super chat. Amit, thank you for everything you do. I just want to show my appreciation by buying you a 1-month premium subscription to Grindr. I can't argue with the humor. Like, I just can't. I can't argue with the humor. The humor is the humor. What am I supposed to do? It's like, it's funny. Like, it's like, it's great. Like even the guy yesterday who spent $2 and he was like, Amit, you know nothing. And he spent the super chat to say, I was like, thank you for paying to let me know that I know nothing. It's like, it's just hilarious. Thank you for the $20. I will see if my Grindr subscription is on auto renew or do I need to resubscribe, but I know it'll be funded. So thank you for the $20 super chat. Appreciate it. Where is Grindr, by the way? Is that 22? Grindr, we still at 22.50. It's been flat from 22 to like 24, but it's up from 12 about a year ago at this time. SoFi, are we moving? Are we going to 18? Is it happening? 1748. It might be happening. Let me check resistance again at 18. Put in the chat if you're super heavy SoFi. Like, put in the chat if you're in SoFi. Like it's one of that. It's a part of your portfolio where every penny means a lot. $18, 245,000 shares. 245,000 shares on SoFi. So it'll take, same thing with Nvidia, about 240,000. So it'll take some money. Rishi, thanks for the $2 super chat. Admit, what kind of Indian are you? I am Punjabi. I was born in America. My parents were born in New Delhi, but my parents are Punjabi as well. So that's the type of Indian. Randy's in 5% SoFi. Jason's 8% SoFi. Femio 60% SoFi. General Weenus 20% SoFi. Mr. Dinkness 50% SoFi. Nick has 20,000 shares. Jasmine 10% of your port. Damn, you guys are heavy, bro. How have you guys been dealing with all my freaking rants on SoFi? Dude, for the past couple months, you guys must have been so annoyed every time I go on my SoFi rant. Now, granted, to be fair, if you're a true SoFi bull, you were listening with a level of interest because you want to hear the bear case. You can't just be like upset that I've gone on some SoFi rants without being like, okay, maybe Amit does have a point in certain areas, yada, yada, you know, you're taking it all in. But at the same time, I think I've balanced my rants with saying, hey, I wouldn't short it, and I'm long because I do think it's cheap. I just don't like the fact that the execution has not been as strong as some other names that are out there. But still, your rants don't matter. That's actually the right answer, to be fair. I mean, dude, this is the point of being an investor, right? Like, even if I'm, again, I don't want to say bear SoFi because I'm long SoFi, but I'm not as excited about it as like, you know, the future of finance or whatever. If you believe in it, you can't care about what I think. I'm going through this with Grab right now. So many people just like constantly saying it's like bullshit, it's stupid, yada, yada. And then there's a select 10 of us, I would say, on Twitter that I talk to actively that like get it. And it reminds me of Palantir very early. I'm not saying Grab's going to be a Palantir, but it just reminds me of the level of intelligence that some select few of people had that simply saw something that, you know, the rest of the market didn't see. And maybe we'll be wrong, but the point is you have to believe in something if you're going to have an opinion on a stock and if you're going to pick stocks versus the S&P. So if you pick SoFi against whatever else anyone was picking, you have to pick it with the belief that, like, you don't care what Amit says, you don't care what Tanner says, you just care personally in what you believe in. And that is, you know, ultimately what makes you an investor at the end of the day. Grant can't spell grab without bag. So yeah, this is the shit I've been dealing with, bro. I like it though. I kind of like it. I like the bullets. I like the shots because it only feels better if you're right, if you went through a lot of shit. Like, no pain, no gain. Like, you're really, like, in this game, you go through a lot of shit on a pick and then you end up being right. It just, like, it feels so much better. Again, you could be bullish Nvidia, but everyone's bullish Nvidia. Who cares? Like, you know, like, you're not, like, it's not that exciting. When you find the hay in the needle stack, that's when it becomes more exciting. But you got to be able to find it. That's ultimately the hard part. Anyway, SoFi's running. SoFi doing well. Hopefully we see 18 today. That would be very nice. 1750 right here. Breaking above 1750 would be important. And then maybe that run to 18 would be possible. JC, thank you for the $200 super chat. Appreciate it. Amit, buy Big Bear AI. I am not going to be able to buy Big Bear AI. Don't really believe in Big Bear AI. I'm not going to buy it just for the hell of chasing it. I appreciate the $200. If you want the $200 back, just DM me on Twitter. I can Venmo you the 200. But I'm not going to buy this, dude. There's nothing I see in this. And I hope it goes up. I really do. I hope it goes up. But I'm not, dude. If I take everyone's super chats for buying a stock, then everyone's going to send a super chat to just tell me to buy whatever the stock they want. If it's a stock I already own, like Palantir, when someone sends a super, it's like, okay, I'll buy another share of Palantir, whatever. But if I just start buying random names, you know, like, it doesn't work like that. And I'm not buying it because I don't think it's not going to go up. It could go up. I don't want to set the precedent that I'm just going to buy these random things just for the hell of it to pump, because now I have to care about it. And I just don't. I don't believe in it. I don't think there's anything there. And I hope I'm wrong, and I hope people make money, but I feel like it's just chasing it right there. Yeah, I could go the degen route and say, all right, whatever, I'll buy some shit, but I'm trying to be a little bit more responsible here with some of this. So I appreciate the money though. I appreciate the $200. And again, I can send it back if you wanted to get it sent back. BBA deals a deal with Palantir. Dude, that deal's from 2021, and that's a bullshit deal. There is no deal with Palantir. Like, all right, here's the thing. Here's the thing on BBAI. This is what I'll do. For the person who sent me the $200, or for anyone who wants me to buy, send me your DD. Send me a legitimate, like, at least, can I say 2-pager instead of not 1-pager? Because if you can't send me 2 to 3 pages on Big Bear AI that you have personally wrote up, not that you chat with, like if you're sending a streamer $200 to go buy it, and it's not to just pump it because you want to see it pumped, which again I think is a bad precedent. If you genuinely admit you are not getting the story, send me the DD. The DMs are open. Send me the DD, and I'll actually read it, because I think I can bet a lot of money that a lot of people that are saying, "Hey, buy Big Bear," I don't think you guys have actually done a lot of DD, and I hope I'm wrong, and I want to be proven wrong. So send me the DD. And I like ASTS, they have 250 pages of DD. One guy, right? Like you can disagree with ASTS valuation, but you can't say that guy is not studying the company. I think a lot of you guys have not studied Big Bear AI. The ones that are both. I think a lot of you guys have no idea what Big Bear AI is. You're just buying it because it's AI and it's hype, and that's fine. That's like trading, that's fine. By the way, CYN down from 25 to 19 now. But I would just like to see the thesis. Like the actual thesis. And I'll share the DD with everyone. I'll share it with everyone. Like Quantess, I'm not going to buy D-Wave, but she could legit send me a 20-page thesis, because I know she's written that much around D-Wave. That doesn't mean I'm going to buy it, but that does mean that, hey, she has done the research, and you can't say that someone is just like blindly buying it if they've actually done the research. D-Wave right here, 1408 on the day. Palantir 138 right now. But I would just like to know. And that's not just for Big Bear AI, for any stock that is like a mate, you need to really look into this. Like you're missing the story. Like just send me your DD. Because if you personally can't write up 2 pages on it, and realistically it should be 5 pages. I mean, like if a stock that you're if it's not just some random pump and dump swing trade, I can absolutely write up 5 pages on a name that I'm convicted in heavily. And I should be able to write it up in like a couple hours, less than that, without using AI. Because I should know a decent amount of the company if I'm investing that much in it. And I feel like if it's as speculative as like Grab is super speculative. That's why I wrote 20 freaking pages on it, because I had so many things to write out, because it's not like Nvidia where you kind of, GPUs, AI, boom, that's your thesis. But if you're going to do a super speculative name, you have to have some level of research there that's really backing up. Like if you worked at an equity research firm, they would laugh at you if you don't have at minimum 20 pages of research on the name. So I just want to see the DD. Kindly, thank you for the $20 super chat. Appreciate it. Thanks for being you. Kindly, thank you for being so kind. Appreciate you being here, and appreciate the $20 super chat from Kind. I think Lee, you're in Singapore, if I'm not wrong. Let me know, but I think you said that a couple months ago that you were from Singapore. Sumit, thanks for the $5 super chat. Based on options pricing, Hood will be lower in September than today. Am I reading that right? It depends on what option you're looking at, but yeah, there are some bearish option flows I've seen just hedging against Hood potentially going a bit lower into September. And Hood technically does dip in August and September. I mean, August, their net deposits were disgusting. Like it was like $2.5 billion. And I was like, how was it this bad? And then I looked at their past 2022, 2021 September quarters, and it's just horrible. August, September tends to be a crappy month for the markets, and Hood tends to do bad. So that's where you could probably see some of the option pricing going negative. Granted, Santa Claus rally, you start to really see it pick back up, and that dip gets bought up rather easily. At least that's what happened last year. Maybe that happens this time, but that's probably why you're seeing some of that go to the downside into August, September. Yeah, without using, dude, I wrote up my graph thesis without using AI. Because I was just typing. Like I had a lot to say. Like when you really are so bullish on a name, you should have so much to say. And I just encourage anyone, if you have a thesis on any name that maybe is a little bit of a contrarian pick, write it out. And I hate writing, by the way. I'm not a fan of writing. Like I just like, I like yapping, as you can tell, a lot more than writing. But for Grab, I just like, you know what? There's so much to say. I'm just going to type. And I just started typing. And I was like, all right, now I feel more comfortable that I can see my thoughts, just sitting in front of me, and I can sit with them. App 11, by the way, down about 2.4 right here. Circle as well, below 200, down 7. So to fight back against the FOMO, kind of having your research is also really important. K. Roger, thank you for the $25 super chat. Please buy 25 worth of fart coin. Sending you my 13-page GD tonight. Farts are not vaporware. I'm in for the long term. Dude, if I knew how to buy it, I actually would buy it just for fun. But I don't even know how to get access to fart coin. Because it's not on Robinhood. It's not on Coinbase. But I would do it for the hell of it if it was there. Okay, I never had a 15-page thesis on Grindr. I wish I did, though. Dude, I called it at $12, bro. I was the only person on the planet that was speaking about this name. Like, you know how rare that is to be literally the only person that has the thesis and, gets the claim credit for it if you like actually associate with it. But I didn't take it all the way, initiate a position and like publicly say, hey, I'm bullish on Grindr. And by the way, there was a moment in around basically right now, June of 2024, where I spent a weekend listening to all the earnings calls and learning about the CEO and reading all the Seeking Alpha articles. Like it was, I remember Saturday and Sunday, like I actually this is when it was $12, like really trying to figure out, is there something here? But what got me is valuation. I was like, all right, well, it's a bit expensive. And so even though I think there's a thesis here, it wasn't the best use. Valuation is the thing that got me off the bandwagon. But I wish I did, bro. It would have been a hell of a thesis a year later to be right about it. Did you do that DD on the biotech you invested in a while back? Yes. Purple Biotech, PPBT. Dude, it wasn't even 20 pages. There was a group on StockTwits, okay? StockTwits is like the Twitter for stocks. As you can see the chart right here on PPBT. There was a group of 10 of us. You guys won't believe it. I'm telling you, collectively, there was 1,000 pages of due diligence on the NT219 molecule. If anyone wants to look it up, you can look it up. The NT219 molecule. It's been 5 years. I still remember what we were going for and how we were thinking of it. And there was a bunch of us in this freaking online cult just saying Purple Biotech is going to become a $1 trillion company that's going to solve all the world's diseases. And now when I look back on it, now that I'm 28, and I was doing that when I was like 22, I'm like, dude, I was a fucking idiot, bro. It's just like straight up dumbass in this online group thinking this biotech's going to cure all the diseases in the world. And, lost my first 25 grand in the market kind of buying into that. Then I got hit with a reverse split. I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. Then I got hit with the second reverse split. I was like, this is not good. And then the third one, I was like, okay, so this company's done. We're done. There's no value here. But you got to go through those moments. And that's what I'm saying. That's what the big bear AI shit, dude. It's like, I'm not saying it's going to be a Purple Biotech, but if you're buying it just for the pure hype of like AI, they're going to take over the AI market like I did with PPBT. Like, it's just, there's nothing there. There's usually not a lot of substance. All right, we are seeing some red candles. SoFi down 20 cents. Palantir 136. Palantir officially down 5% on the day. Robinhood holding 82. Tesla's down. Nvidia might give up 157 right here. It is a little red from that candle. So we are seeing some red candles, whereas Bitcoin, but overall still holding on to some of the green. Isaiah, thank you for the $5 super chat. I sold a $15 covered call on SoFi for July 18th expiration date. What role do you recommend? Okay, so the question is, what is your price target on SoFi? So if you're in July at 15, you're underwater. I mean, again, I'm not the biggest, I don't have the best valuation model for SoFi. I've generally felt $20 is the range. So, I mean, rolling to like December 20 or January, 2019, I don't think it's crazy. If you think SoFi is about to go on a run, which it feels like it is. It could be wrong, but it feels like it is. So if you want to keep those shares, then yeah, I would roll out a few months and probably get to $20 instead of 15. So that may be the place. Dan, thank you for the $20 super chat. We did our interview on Chris and Dan's show. I'm in biotech heavy bag, AQST. Nice to see you growing. Dan, that's awesome, man. I think we did that podcast like years ago, right? That was like 2-3 years ago. Yeah, dude, that was a long time ago. Dan, thanks for being here. Thanks for being on the channel. $20. Thanks for the super chat. And AQST is your biotech. AQST. All right. There you go. Biotech. Again, it's just a hard market. It's a hard market to win. You got to have a lot of conviction. With PPBT, I had a lot of it. And obviously it didn't work out. But yeah, thank you for being here. And thank you for the super chat. Yes, it is the hay and the needle stack. For those that don't know, everyone's been saying it wrong for the past 100 years. I think about 10 months ago, this channel came to the conclusion that it is not a needle in a haystack. That is English propaganda on how to think of conceptualizing. Because what is a needle in a haystack? It's something to find, right? A hay in a needle stack would be really hard to find. And so the obvious answer here is that, it's been wrong for the past 100 years. By the way, we got some Supreme Court stuff. So here you go. Supreme Court just put the brakes on activist judges blocking a national policy with universal injunctions. In a 6-3 ruling written by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, SCOTUS said federal courts are overstepping when they issue nationwide rulings for people who aren't even involved in a lawsuit. The decision limits the power of district judges to halt federal policies across the country based on one single case. Wow. This is kind of similar to the stuff that stopped Trump from implementing the tariffs a couple of weeks ago. Basically, this means no more one judge vetoes for America First laws. 6-3, huh? 6-3 to stop district courts from appealing federal policies. I'm sure there's some more nuance to how this policy looks like, but that just came out about 20 minutes ago. Huh. Interesting. Okay, is Trump tweeting? Hold on, did Trump tweet? Trump did tweet. Oh, he just tweeted about Supreme Court. Okay, so he said, giant win in the United States Supreme Court. Congrats to Attorney General Pam Bondi. News conference at the White House at 11:30. Okay, so they're going to be doing a news conference. Let me see what else is happening here. I think we have Trump talking about Russia. Do we have some quotes here? Yeah, Trump said, thanks to, Putin said, thanks to Trump, U.S. and Russia are beginning to align. Okay. It's kind of bullish. Kind of bullish. Putin saying that, hey, Trump's getting us to be friendlier with the United States. That is not horrible. And then 11:30, it looks like they're having a press conference. I don't know if Trump's going to be live at that conference. It might be just the press secretary. But if he is live, we might get to hear from him. Nvidia falling right below 157. A line on what? I would imagine a line on the eventual end, or at least compromise to what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. I would hope that that's what they mean by aligning, because that's, you know, the biggest thing that Trump's been waiting for now. How do you feel about CEG earning 7.5? I don't know enough about these guys, but that Meta deal they signed was super bullish. So yeah, in general, I mean, I think CEG is going to be a winner over the long term, but short term, I honestly have no clue. It does seem like more and more energy is happening, and more energy demand is continuing to take place. Okay, what else do we see? Oh, take a look at this. This is crazy, bro. If you had bought Coinbase calls last week for 345 expiring today, you would be up 347,000%. So yeah, I know it's a lot of watch list porn right here, but still, like, this, the move on Coinbase was crazy. Absolutely freaking crazy. Pounce right here, 137 again. We saw the headline on the protests. I think that's the only reason the stock's down. Maybe it's algos taking profits. Nvidia back to 157, AMD 144, S&P just below 615. But the protest might be the reason why that one is getting hit. Omar, thanks for the $5. I'm 19. I bought a HIMS call at 42 when it crashed, up over 120% already. Expiry July 25th. Keep streaming, bro. You keep me up from sleeping at work. Omar, congrats, man. That is a short-term dated call. And you kind of bought it when you were supposed to buy it. When the stock crashes, that's when you're supposed to buy calls if you believe that it's getting, you know, hit for no reason. And there you go. 120% up in less than a couple of days. Now, again, it's not easy to do that every time. This is like one of those things that you were uniquely able to do because you probably thought HIMS didn't deserve to get that low. But you buy leaps and you buy calls when the stock crashes and you think that it's mismatched. 49.87 on HIMS. So HIMS also getting a red candle down from 52 to 49.80. But still up about 7% on the day. Okay, cool. All right, let's see what else. Let's see what else do we have. I think that was some of the main headlines. We have Trump at 11:30. Let's get a little bit more coverage right here, and then let me see what else that we can pick up.
Than they were 4 months ago, and we've been tested, at least psychologically, by the tariff threat and had a few months to maybe assimilate what it's going to look like. So all of that together says that we understand why we got back here. We had this sort of fright and relief cycle that has gotten us here. One thing I would look for is sentiment getting over aggressive. Are people positioned in a way that they're hoping the Chinese market are expecting too much? I would say not yet in terms of the kind of mass of regular old investors. But as you, David, were talking about with Jim earlier, there's this kind of wild wing of the market. And we talked about this in the fourth quarter, too, where there's a speculative fringe. It's very active. It takes nothing to get it moving again. But that's also kind of a bull market acting like a bull market. It's very hard to say now we've crossed the line into where that's a source of instability for the overall market.
So you should have bought when President Trump said buy after Liberation Day.
Right. After the market went down 20% and you reached the moment of peak uncertainty, yes. And in fact, what we've followed is the pattern of a lot of these near non-recessionary bear markets, where it was like 1998, I've been talking about forever, like 2018, where it's sort of like the market has a severe and sharp correction, not just this kind of rolling recognition that the economy is getting worse. And then as soon as you have every increment of that uncertainty being addressed or people absorbing it, then the market can find its way back higher. Now, are we expecting too much from the economy? I think everyone has decided to retrofit the new highs in the market and say, well, I guess the economy's great. Well, you got soft patches here and there, and the economy
Doesn't matter though. If
is
the
not that much different.
It'll tilt the Fed's hand to cutting rates.
Right. But what happened to, you don't always want to buy when the Fed cuts if they have to cut, right? I mean, my point is it's a little more of a two-way debate about how the economy and the market interact with each other from here.
If you were listening to me and Jim, you heard him making allusions at least to the mid to late 90s as well. And I know I've come back to this on this a couple of times. There is a speculative nature to certain parts of this market, but do you see that corollary at all?
I do see the corollary. I mean, I think it's very tough to kind of draw the line exactly parallel to what point we are in versus
what year.
That 5-year stretch in the late 90s. I think 96 sounds a little too early to me, because we still were just getting used to the even the notion of having this retail driven cycle. Now, we haven't had a lot of IPOs. The ones we've had have gone nuts.
Yeah, they performed very well.
But we, we had like 500 IPOs in 1999.
And many of them were
and
bankrupt
they all doubled
companies,
on the first day.
And many of them were bankrupt a couple of years.
The interesting thing here is that we've had like, I think, 20 IPOs this year, not 500. We've only had like 3 or 4 of them that were actually mainstream. The thing that he says, though, that I think is very interesting is that in 1999, you didn't have this type of retail frenzy. You had retail that was like entering in, and that's why it got super bullish, but you didn't have the Robinhood generation. And that generation that Morgan Stanley said is pumping in $5 billion a day into the markets, that A is keeping things elevated and getting dips to get bought. But B, given the research that they're doing on the HIMs, the Rocket Labs, the Hoods, the Palanters of the world, it is outperforming some of the fund managers and how they're thinking institutionally about these stocks. So from that perspective, it is like speculative, but it's also a level of speculation that requires more liquidity, which is good for the overall markets. But B, some of that speculation is like legitimate speculation. Like HIM's speculation when it was at $20 was good. Maybe Circle speculation at 250 is not the best. But you have different factions of the market when it comes to retail coming in. And that could also be, be keeping us elevated. Here is that update on the Supreme Court right here. Let's get some coverage there, and then we'll keep going.
Courts have the authority to block President Trump's executive orders on a nationwide basis. And the base case in this 119-page ruling that we are reading through now, the bottom line here is that the court is ruling that lower level courts have been going too far, that they do not have the authority to issue what are known as nationwide injunctions. This means they're ruling not just for the plaintiffs in the cases that they're hearing within their jurisdictions, but also blocking them on a nationwide basis. The Supreme Court saying in a 6-3 opinion today, falling on ideological lines, that they are going too far when they issue those nationwide injunctions. Now, this is a major win for the Trump administration. This is what they had wanted to see, because this could have major implications for all executive orders moving forward, saying that individual lower level courts cannot decide on the merits of those orders on a nationwide basis, that they can only rule within their own jurisdictions. And guys, the court, a couple of quotes here, they're saying universal injunctions likely exceed the equitable authority that Congress has granted to the federal courts. And in a separate opinion, Justice Thomas for the conservatives stresses that the court today puts an end to the increasingly common practice of federal courts issuing universal injunctions. The court has long been sympathetic that lower level courts should not be able to issue these. Today, they have the chance to rule on that. And guys, this came up in the context of a series of cases on birthright citizenship and President Trump's very controversial executive order that would have effectively ended birthright citizenship. The court did not rule on the merits of birthright citizenship today. Instead, all that they did was said that lower level courts that have already ruled on those executive orders and found them unconstitutional, that they can only make those decisions within their own jurisdictions.
So that obviously is having some implications on the market as well. And that's likely leading to, I guess, the market thinking Trump's going to have more unilateral control. And that unilateral control will be helping. Okay, so I think the actual reason that Palantir is down today, it's not the protests. Yeah, you guys are putting in the chat. They're leaving the Russell. It seems like that's what's happening. It seems like they are getting rebalanced out of the Russell. They've already been in the S&P. If you guys are not wrong on that, that is a way better reason to understand why it's actually getting a 5% hit. If that rebalance is true, then, you know, we would see some level of obviously selling pressure to make that happen. Now, here's another reason that Palantir could be down. This happened yesterday. I didn't see it if he was bullish or bearish, but a familiar face talked about Palantir yesterday. Let's see. Maybe he was bullish, and maybe that's why Palantir is down.
I think it has an algorithm that spits out what would move a stock. Because I can't believe this Palantir. Today, Nuclear Operating System, NOS, will achieve on time, on budget nuclear construction. Palantir, that's what they're doing. That's how they're going to be doing it.
Do you have any idea what that actually means? What is it?
Well, that doesn't really matter. It's got nuclear in it.
It's got nuclear in it.
And today they sat down with Satya Nadella and said these guys are really important. Now, what they do, I mean, I was listening to Senator Warner this morning, and she's saying, like, Secretary Def, which is now what, Secretary of War, they want to bring them all in, bring Palantir in. Now, she didn't say Palantir specifically, but David, Palantir remains a $200 stock. Cash trading is $144.
All right, so that might be the actual reason. That might be the actual freaking reason, bro. Every time. Every time. You know what he just tweeted, dude? He also just freaking tweeted. He said freaking... he said 4% down is an insult to Alex Karp. Palantir down 4, that's an insult to Alex Karp. I think this is the reason, bro. I don't think it's this Russell 1000 nonsense. I think it's this shit going on. I think Kramer's mad about this one, bro. Kramer got so bearish at like $10. He was, you know, one of those just people just, you know, believing Karp was crazy, yada yada. It just completely went against him. Completely went against. And then he got bullish, but then Karp wouldn't do his show, and I think he's been upset that Karp hasn't been doing the show for a long time. Wait, Arnie tweeted under it. Look, there's Arnie. Please, please, no more. Arnie's like, come on, man, come on here. All right, so maybe that, along with the protests, along with the Russell stuff. That's your explanation right there for Palantir. So that's what we got. He didn't understand the company like 6 months ago. I still think he probably doesn't understand the company. But, you know, it is what it is. It's freaking Kramer. It's how he is. AMD right here, 144. S&P 615. S&P still going higher, bro. S&P's not stopping. Grab making a little bit of a move right here, 478. Breaking 480 would be nice to see on that one. Apple 201. Bitcoin 106. DoorDash 240. And the Nubank 1331 on the day. Again, you do have that press conference at 11:30 that I don't know if Trump's going to be involved in. We got Michigan consumer data. We got that Putin quote recently. We got the European trade stuff this morning. Microsoft coming out with a new chip. They said that this morning as well. Fed Kashkari, we got 2 quotes from him. He said, if the Fed cuts in September and tariff effect shows up later, we could pause rate cuts. I continue to expect 2 rate cuts in 2024 with possible first cut in September. Wow, I don't know he said that. Okay, so Kashkari kind of explicitly said he's expecting the first cut in September. Granted, the market also kind of already thought that would be the case. So that could also be why the S&P is getting some support today. I mean, if you're getting a Fed president say, looks like September's like, it's literally going to be like 2024. 9 months of waiting, and then 24, they gave us a cut. And then they gave us, did they give us 50 in September, or that was October? Remember that, hold on. Yeah, no, this is September. They did 50 in September. They did 50 in September. It wasn't 25. Okay, yeah, because there was a double cut essentially. It was compensating for for July that they said they were going to do. I have a video of me when I reacted to that. I don't know if I can find it here. But there was a video where it was just crazy when they finally did 50 bips. Yeah, we got 4 for all of 2024. Intelligent Computing, thank you for the 20 super chat. Thank you for everything, Amit. You helped me 5x my mom's portfolio since the 23 lows. Incredible. My username on X is not available. I messaged you yesterday. Carp identifies as a socialist. You said so in 2022. You know, that is, first of all, thank you for the super chat and congrats to your mom. That's absolutely incredible. And, you know, 2022 was just a great opportunity to get some of these names. The thing about Carp, he did say in 2022, he identifies as a socialist. The difference is over the past couple of years, when he's been asked about his like progressive politics, he always like starts to critique the Democratic Party. And there was this interview you did with Barry Weiss for like an hour and a half, and she was asking him like, how do you deal with being a progressive, yada, yada. And he's like, economically, I'm more on the side of like socialism and like the concept of just like redistribution of wealth and equality. But from a pragmatic perspective, one of the things he always brings up is that Peter Thiel's a libertarian. And so you got Carp that identifies as progressive, Peter Thiel is a libertarian, and they both work together so well because there's a paradox. And how do you build a company that has a lot of the sort of principles of, one could argue, socialism, which is give more than you take, which is Palantir's entire philosophy on product, right? Like, let's give out the product and eventually we'll get paid. But then also have the unit economics of a capitalist to have incredible margins. And I think I did a video on this a long time ago. I think the title of the video is like, let me see if I can find it. It's like the paradox of Palantir. And it was a video just comparing how a socialist, a self-described socialist, and a libertarian could work together to build a company. And it kind of goes deep into that. Now, granted, even though Carp says, he identifies with the progressive nature of some policies, I think it's more philosophically because obviously Carp is worth $12 billion, right? Like, it's going to be hard to call you a super economic progressive when you're worth 12 billion, So you have people that say, although he believes in that philosophical school of thought, because again, he did his philosophy in Germany, like he's more in the European mind of thinking when it comes to economics. But he's also built an incredible company. And so I just think there's values that he associates from different ways of thinking of economics, but then applies them in a business logic. And that's why Palantir is the way that it is today. Yeah, Carp got money now. I think in general, when you start making money in life, like that's the thing about some of these protesters. It's like and just some of these people that voted for Mamdani. It's like when you start making real money in life, it's hard to hold on to those same progressive beliefs, because like now you don't want to give away that money because you worked your ass off for that money. If you made a lot of money, if it wasn't a trust fund and you actually had to bust your ass and take risks to make money, you start just naturally, human nature gets a little selfish. We're like, I worked really hard for this money. I kind of don't think that someone who didn't work as hard as me deserves what I have. And that's okay. That's ethical for me to, enjoy the fruits of my labor. That's the promise of the American dream. But the problem is you got a lot of people voting for this guy who, quite frankly, are broke. And there's structural reasons you can identify for why they're broke outside of just lack of ambition or gender studies in college and now they can't get a job, et cetera, right? There's like obviously accountability they have to take for some of that, but there's also structural reasons. And I think Mamdani is resonating with them because he's trying to say, hey, I can fix all the structural reasons why you're broke. The problem is, can he? Like, can he actually do that? And again, we've seen this with some policies historically. Like, it's just hard to make that happen. This is what JCal tweeted yesterday. He said, massive layoffs in NYC coming. Companies will flee the second this dipshit takes power. These are his words. And this is what Mamdani said on the Breakfast Club 2 days ago.
I've proposed is that we raise $10 billion to pay for our entire economic agenda and start to Trump-proof our city, because we know he'll use federal funding as leverage over this city. And we will do so in 2 key ways. The first is to match the state's top corporate tax rate to that of New Jersey. We are at 7.25%. They're at 11.5%. Corporations can pay it over there. They can pay it over here. And the beauty of it is that it doesn't just apply to corporations headquartered in New York City. Because when you say this, people will say, well, they're going to go to Florida. Mm-hmm. Wherever you are headquartered, as long as you do business in the state of New York, you are taxable for that corporate tax. We're talking about corporations that are making millions of dollars, not in revenue, but in profit. And the second is taxing the top 1% of New Yorkers. We're talking about people who make $1 million a year or more. taxing them just by a flat 2% tax increase. And I know if 50 Cent is listening, he's not going to be happy about this. He tends to not like this tax policy, but I want to be very clear. This is about $20,000 a year. It's a rounding error. And all of these things together, they make every New Yorker's life better, including those who are actually getting taxed.
So again, if you're listening to that and you are not in the best economic position in New York, you're going to hear that and say, why would I not vote for him? And it's just really logical, bro. Eric Adams, Andrew, they're not talking the way that he's talking about economics and politics, even if he can't actually do what he's saying he wants to do. The point is, he's speaking in a way that's definitely getting people's attention. And so it's hard to then, Nvidia, by the way, 157.54, Nvidia trying to make its run again back to 158. It's hard to not see that as someone who, if you're not in the best economic position, it's hard to not see that and be like, oh, I'm not voting for that. I'm going to vote for the corporate guy. There's no way, bro. You're going to vote for Mamdani. It's just simple. This guy will be the next mayor. It seems very, very obvious at this point. He's going to do it. It's then the question is just going to become how the broader market reacts to that as well. Micron, dude, how is that stock doing? That one, great earnings, flat on the week. Flat on the week. It's not logical. It's saying other people have money and I'll take it from them and give it to you. Well, no, that's pretty damn logical to someone who's broke. It might not be logical to a capitalist or to someone who's an investor. But if you're struggling to pay rent and some hedge fund manager like Bill Ackman makes $200 million a year and you can't pay your rent, it sounds pretty damn logical for you to be like, I'm going to vote for the guy that's going to take some of that money and lower my rent. Obviously, I don't think that the merit of that policy necessarily makes the most sense. But the point is, if you're in that position, that's how you're going to think of it. And again, the fundamental question around a lot of these conversations is, where does the money come from, right? Why does that guy have 200 million? And so, when I think I was watching an interview yesterday with Mamdani talking about it, and it's just, again, the underlying tone is I want to help people, but not why do I want to take from other people? And how did those other people actually get the level of wealth that they get in the first place? That's the thing that no one ever wants to answer. And when you realize, well, they had to work for it, they had to do this, that doesn't mean that you do laissez-faire capitalism, everything goes free and there's no regulations, but that does mean the philosophy of taking from them just to give to someone else is a philosophy that doesn't always work, because then the motivation to keep building it might not be there. Nvidia, 5 cents away, bro. It's really going. 158. 158. It's trying. We are 5 cents away. Let me check resistance. I think it was at 300,000 shares. This is the only thing that's really running today. I mean, everything else kind of lost most of their green over the past hour, even if they're still holding on to some of it. But Nvidia is the one that's trying to go for all-time highs. 257,000. 257,000. 2 cents away, dude. I think it's going to do it. It's going to be almost 3.9 trillion, bro. Holy crap. Are we doing it? Nvidia, 3.85, 2 cents away. I don't see 158. Hopefully it doesn't get stuck at 157.99, but maybe. Let's see. 150. It's so close, bro. It is right there. 162 is 4 trillion. 162. Dude, Coinbase, yeah, look, I'm not surprised that Coinbase is down 7% because it had a monster week. So it's still a great week for Coinbase, but it's probably taking a breather that I don't think people can be that upset about. That is a nasty one, though. Coinbase from freaking 380 to 350 today. So that one relaxing just a bit. All right, we didn't get it yet. 1 cent away. 1 cent away. Dude, it's kind of crazy, bro. Every dollar Nvidia goes up, $25 billion are added to this market cap. That means 25 billion is getting into this valuation. 157.99. Circle, by the way, that one's also getting hit. That's probably why Coinbase said, wow, Circle down 11%. All right, Circle and Coinbase taking a bit of a breather, getting a little bit of that froth out of the market. Maybe that money is coming into Nvidia. And we just got to see. All right, it touched 158, but again, it didn't really touch it. It touched it, but it was literally less than a millisecond. The resistance I have is still there, 250,000 shares. So it's got to really break above it. This is not enough yet for us to say we are definitely above. Yeah, Grab's at 481. Grab getting over 480. That's nice. Carlos says, I have a girlfriend like that. She doesn't really touch it. Okay, that is interesting. 157.94. Come on, we got 7 cents. Let's do this. It's Friday. Let's get to 158. And quite frankly, if we get to 158, we're probably not seeing 160 today, but I mean, we know where this market wants to go. We know where this market wants to go. Hoodie, 82, then Palantir, 138, Nvidia, 157.85. Oh my gosh. Grabs 480 and it'll still be 480 in 3 years. Hopefully it'll be more than 480 in 3 years. Dude, this one's teasing us, dude. This one's really teasing us, bro. I mean, it touched 158 for like a second, but it's not like actually getting hit there. Rest of the Max 7 not doing anything today either. Yeah, Tessie, 325. SoFi's green. Google cannot find its bid yet, but it is up at least this week from 167. Apple 201. Foldable phones. Dude, Apple was the 3rd largest stock in the market yesterday that was traded via options. It's like 900,000 contracts were traded. So, I mean, foldable phones are getting some love. Is Nvidia 200 end of year possible? Tanner thinks so. I think it's more 180. And I get that price target with a PE of 40 on a EPS of 450. But Tanner made a video a couple of weeks ago about how 200 is possible on his channel. And he's not wrong. I mean, if they put up the growth and they show the numbers, 200 is not insane. Even at 157, dude, it's not expensive. Nvidia is not expensive here. If you believe their growth estimates, they're not expensive. So, I mean, Netflix is still more expensive than Nvidia and Costco, even at these levels. So I think it's possible, but I'm personally expecting, I'm really expecting around 165 to 170. I don't even want to be that aggressive, but if it gets to 200, that wouldn't be the worst thing. I don't think people realize how popular Grab is in Asia. Yeah, dude. Like the guy I was talking with from Thailand last night. I mean, when he said he uses it every day, multiple times a day, that's only going to happen. That's only going to compound more and more and more and more and more and more and more over the next decade. Like they are winning this whole market. Margins are bad right now. Consolidation is happening. Margins will get better and they will take the whole damn market. Like that's how I see them. And it will take time for that to play out. It's not going to happen overnight. But right now is where the numbers are starting to show the potential of that, which is why, again, I mean, this is the other graph I think people need to look at when it comes to this. This is their institutional holdings. Look at December 2024 and then look at January 2025. It's a 40% increase. Went from 2.1 billion shares owned by the Toots to 3.2. The reason is the Toots have also realized, all right, this story's finally ready to play out. It's finally maturing. They've been losing money for the past 4 years. They've got their shit together. They're not growing exponentially yet, but they're going to get to that phase. And once you see the growth, I think the street recognizes the value and then we see the momentum. But that is the thesis. 157.88. It's still not pushing us above. It's literally just looking at paint dry at this point. But maybe we're 10 cents away to get there. We touched it, but it really didn't hold on. Do you think we're going to see a Netflix stock split this year? They have never done a stock split, right? I mean, if they want to get the options market juiced up, do a 10-for-1 split, get Netflix at 130, get a lot of people that buy 100 shares just to sell some covered calls against it. Instead of spending 130,000, you can spend 13,000 and buy some. I mean, like, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate a stock split. Just the average person, it feels intimidated. Like any regular person would want to buy shares of Netflix if they're like just entering the market because they probably use Netflix, but they see 1,300, they're like, dude, I can't afford 1,300. See 130, it gets a little easier to imagine. Nvidia 157.80. All right, Nvidia stuck. Nvidia might not have a shot to break above. We got to see. The market makers might not be letting it today. Cruise lines are up today. Yeah, that's right. Cruise lines. Carnival had a great earnings. That's up 2%. NCLH, great earnings as well. That's up 3%. And then Royal Caribbean. Cruises, not too bad. Yeah, Meta needs to do a split as well, bro. Meta, Netflix, and Costco, all of them need to do some splits. Afterthoughts on Lemonade. Again, I said this already. I'm not going to be investing. I just wasn't convinced by the AI element of their thesis, which to me was the only part that like really, got people excited that it's an AI company and the other legacy companies can't do AI for insurance. So other than that, I'm just not that excited about Lemonade. I think it was a good deep dive though. I think there was a thesis just personally, like Oscar to me, honestly, was a little bit more exciting than Lemonade. But then again, Lemonade's growth prospects seem a bit better than Oscar because Oscar's really reliant on the ACA. Lemonade doesn't have to worry that much about that. So yeah, I'm personally not going to be investing. Trump's live. Is he live? Let's see. Oh, he's about to be live. All right. He's about to be live. Okay, he's not there yet, but he's about to. Dude, I'm serious, bro. I think we're going to miss Trump when he's gone. I think we're going to miss the content in chief. Like you can disagree politically all you want, but like, dude, this is content, bro. Like he puts out a tweet, the whole world cares about what he says. He says some crazy word. Like it is content at the end of the day. And it's not horrible. Did we get 158? Did we get it? There we go. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Nvidia, 158 Dolores. Dude, what a freaking move on Nvidia. My goodness, 158 this week. The stock was at 145, 143 at the lows. 158. That is a hell of a move. Market cap on Nvidia, 3.86 trillion Dolores. There you go. Microsoft is second, Apple's third, Amazon fourth, Google is fifth, Meta sixth, Saudi Aramco 7, Broadcom 8, TSM 9, Berkshire Hathaway 10, 11 is Tesla. Nvidia is number one with market cap. It's wild, bro. They let us buy this thing for under 100 because of DeepSeek. They really let us buy this shit for under 100 because of DeepSeek. Freaking DeepSeek, the thing that introduced reasoning models that would only increase more compute. The market freaked out. I mean, this is the beauty of the market. Like, things can get stupid and irrational, and if you have a little bit of foresight, you can take advantage of that. It's just the beauty of markets. AMD, you guys got to buy that thing for $70. AMD is basically at 150. I mean, like, it is just incredible sometimes, these opportunities. Yeah, and dude, the level of shit Wall Street talked about retail piling into Nvidia. Dude, not even just Wall Street, dude. There were some big retail Twitter accounts that I respect that were so bearish on Nvidia and were literally like clowning people. Like even when I posted that I was buying the dip, you could tell they were like responding in the comments and they were like, this is kind of stupid, yada, yada. And it's just like, dude, like this was the most obvious one. This was literally the most obvious one. And then the thing is, it went from 115 to 125, then it came back down to 103. And that's when a lot of the, like, hold on. Can I show you the tweet? The amount of comments here that this is freaking Cisco that I saw from 2 months ago when I did my old post. It was just insane. So this is what I posted January 30th. Bought more Nvidia, going down with the shit boys. Look at these comments. I worry this is the next generation Cisco. Nvidia seems like the Cisco Verizon of 1999. And you just go down and down and down. And it's all like, this one is, you're going to really regret this. It was freaking Nvidia. It was Nvidia, 158 third. Now she's moving, 159. Let's check resistance. 159. 124,000. That's way less than 158. If she sees 159, I think she wants 160. I think she wants 160. Would you still buy? Yes. I did buy. I bought 100 shares on Sunday at 147.95. That was my last purchase on Sunday. The same night I bought the 300 shares of Robin at 83. I bought 100 shares of Nvidia. So I mean, look, I've got a decent amount of Nvidia at this point, but I like, I don't think it's crazy, dude. I don't think it's crazy. Like, this is one of those names that is not slowing down. They are growing. A lot of the other tech stocks are not growing the way Nvidia is growing. We cannot forget that. They are putting up the growth. They have the net income margins, and they're able to do what they need to do. And as a result, they're getting momentum. So June 25th at 1:18 a.m. So I have not been afraid to buy into strength. I started buying at 140 was my first buy, then 120, then the DeepSeek allowed me to get into the hundreds. And I've been buying at 120, 130, 140 as we're running up. Like, this is just like, it's de-risked from the perspective of, hey, a lot of these growth stocks that are out there, A, they don't have a crazy amount of growth like Google, or B, they're really volatile like Tesla. Nvidia has all the growth and it's cheap. Like, this is why this has been, I think, one of the most exciting buys this year. Doug says my Nvidia $70 leaps are loving this. I mean, dude, deep in the money leaps when it fell to 100. You know, that's a hell of a strategy. And those are going to print with a nice beta going into 2026. My average is 119.78. 119.78 on Nvidia. I did covered calls at 170. I don't hate that. I have some covered calls for January 2026 at 170. I have no weeklies on Nvidia. I have no weeklies. I have some at January 2026, 170. But I think you kind of get the hell out of the way when it comes to, if it's going on this run, you kind of say, all right, let it do a thing. If you didn't want to sell weekly, I think like conservatively 165 to 170 on the weekly is not crazy. But I just put 170 for Jan 2026 for some of my position, not all of it. And yeah, I mean, dude, when the stock's going up, you don't really need the call premium. Trump is not live yet. Trump is not live. We're still waiting for him, but he is not live yet. What I mean by resistance is I mean that there's a certain amount of shares that are ready to be sold at a certain level. So at 159, people have already put in their order blocks to sell to the tune of about 150,000 shares, which means someone needs to buy those 150,000 shares, which is resistance, right? Because until someone buys those shares, because whoever's selling is selling it to someone who's buying it, then we're not going to move above the price. And that resistance is lower than what we had at 158. Jose, bro. Jose must be having a fun day. Jose must be having a fun day. Your largest position goes up like this in a week. You should be having some fun. D. Lee, thank you for the $20 super chat. Love your analysis. Thoughts on Iran. Hearing lots of talking about it. Potentially have a pound to run. I think we'll do a deep dive on it. I have no information on it other than I think a AI hyperscaler might be signing a deal with them. They already have a partnership with CoreWeave, so that's kind of what's getting people to talk. They're a Bitcoin miner, but they have a lot of energy infrastructure set up as well. So I think next Thursday we'll do a deep dive and we'll try to get some people to play out that thesis as well. Kyle Brown, thank you for becoming a channel member. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here and thank you for becoming a channel member. Is Meta moving with Nvidia? Meta, wow, 730.95. Meta's not stopping either. $3 away from 4 trillion. $3 away from 4 trillion. Where's Grab? Is Grab moving? 481. All right, up 3%. Palantir still flat on the day or down on the day. And then Nvidia, all-time highs. What would be your Grab entry point? Okay, so I will buy shares again if it falls below 450. Do I think 480 is a horrible price? No, but it is range bound in my opinion from 450 to 480 until that's like above the 200 day until earnings. So like I don't hate buying here, but I definitely think it could come back to 450 very easily. And so if you want to wait, then waiting is fine. But personally, I'll be DCing again if we see below 450 because last time I bought shares was at 450. So I would wait to see if that comes below. Dude, for the people calling for 350, like you realize Grab would be trading at almost 75% cash at those levels. Like I get that, you know, people might be bearish, but like at some point, some of these price targets are kind of ridiculous. Now, maybe it does. Maybe I'm wrong and this thing's going to 350. Well, last time it was anywhere near that, the S&P was at 4,800. Now, I know that it hasn't massively outperformed all the names since the April lows, but to say it's going to come back to the April lows for what reason exactly? Like, what's the fundamental reason? They're profitable. Adjusted EBITDA is growing by 50%. Revenue is growing by 20%. What exactly is the reason it needs to take another 20, 30% decline? Like, I think sometimes people are throwing out numbers, but there's like not a reason why. I saw the grab warrants. I don't like them though because of their expiration. And they have the grab warrants they expire. You need to get to $11 by the end of 2026. Now, I think that's possible, but I don't want to take the risk of forcing it to get to $11 by end of 2026. The warrants are cheap though. You know, they're not expensive. And Brad Gerstner still owns a ton of those warrants as well. But yeah, I'd rather just own the stock. I think the risk reward is not the worst there either. My Nvidia cost basis is 548. Wow, dude. Goodness. Some of you guys, OGs on Nvidia. Oh, freaking G's on Nvidia. Is Microsoft wanting 500 MSFT? Yeah, Microsoft, bro. Dan Ives yesterday said 600. Take it there. I mean, tech is getting a bid. Tech is getting a bid. And again, this is where, you know, if we start seeing some of the money leave the froth and get into tech, then that's, I think, only something that's going to be positive for the broader market. Oh, we got the director of the Federal Housing Administration on live. Let's see what he has to say. They just issued using Bitcoin as collateral for your mortgage. Let's see what he has to say about that and see if he gets any comments from Powell. Trump is not live yet. I will switch to him once Trump is live.
Intensifying. Following the Fed's most recent pause in cuts, the federal housing director called for Powell to resign from his post, adding that he has, quote, no clue what he can do for the housing market. Pulte doubling down this week, warning that Fed Chair Powell is, quote, really hurting the housing market.
UNH, by the way, 309. So UNH up about 2%. UNH getting some love right here.
And joining us now is FHFA Director Bill Pulte. Director Pulte, it's great to have you. Why are you being so hard on Fed Chair Powell? He's just trying to make sure we don't have an inflation problem.
That's what he says. I don't believe him. We have a housing problem in this country. And we have a situation where people are locked in their homes with these low interest rates. And he's keeping these rates high for no reason. I think the only reason he's doing it is because he's political, contrary to what he says. And unfortunately, it's hurting a lot of Americans. It's hurting a lot of people. And frankly, I was hired to restore the American dream or help restore the American dream for everybody. And it's very hard when you have inflation at 2%, but the head of the Federal Reserve is keeping rates at 4.5%. It doesn't make any mathematical or data sense.
I know you can I will just say, I know Fed Chair Powell pretty well. I don't think he's political. I think he takes the Fed independence very seriously and really tries to tune out the political noise. And there is a case. I mean, it's not just him, first of all. There's a lot of others on the committee as well. There is a case that inflation has not been brought down to 2% and that it could potentially rise as tariffs hit the economy.
Well, that all sounds good, but what I care about is the data. And what I see at Fannie and Freddie, which, as you know, I oversee, is I see a little bit of softness because of his policies in housing prices. And I see a lot of builders potentially pulling back on supply. And so he sits there in front of Congress the other day and he gives testimony under oath saying that his interest rates don't affect housing supply. And that's just patently false. So everything you're saying sounds good. I'm not trying to attack him personally. I'm sure, you know, he's a good friend to you and to others, but responsible for the housing market.
I think most of Wall Street really respects him and finds him honorable. I would also just say, Director Pulte, even if he cuts rates like you and the president are asking, even if he cuts them a lot, that doesn't necessarily mean mortgage rates will fall. I mean, there are other impacts to market rates which impact mortgages, fiscal policy, the economy, inflation.
I think they will fall. I think you saw that evidence is there that they do track what the Fed does. Look at what the Fed did the last several years and look at what happened with mortgage rates. So the Fed is enormously powerful. And President Trump won a historic mandate. The American people are sick and tired, frankly, of the inflation of the last 4 years. And in my opinion, this is the last vestige of Biden holding back the housing market. And I'm seeing it continue to do damage. I see data, as you know, in real time every day at Fannie and Freddie. Concerns me, and it needs to stop. And he needs.
Is Trump live? Trump is live. Yes. No, he's not live on my end. He's not live yet. Let me check if it's a different stream, but he's not live yet on my end.
To resign.
So he's probably not going to resign, and his term is up in May of next year. I know the president has quoted you in some of your attacks. Have you spoken with the president about this decision for who he would make the next Fed chair? And is it something that you would be interested in yourself?
Yeah, he's not live yet.
Well, I would never talk about what I talk about with the president. No, I'm not interested. I am interested in serving the American people and the president. I took an oath to get the housing market back in shape after the last 4 years, get supply up, get it so people can have the American dream again. And so I feel like I'm just doing my job. I mean, how can I sit here as the nation's housing regulator in charge of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and not be upset if we have interest rates at 4.5%, people locked in their homes, and inflation's at 2%? It just, look, he can hallucinate and he comes up with all these ideas and all these dreams and imaginations about what tariffs can do. But if you look at the data is not there, and he needs to lower the rates.
All right. Well, there is a case because we have seen some benign inflation, but he wants to see more evidence. I also, want to ask you about Fannie and Freddie and some news. You've asked them for proposals to look into considering crypto holdings and mortgage loan risk, and I just wonder how you're thinking about that. Clearly, the president is pro crypto, but does that introduce some new risk, potentially default risk, because crypto prices are so much more volatile than stocks and bonds?
Great question. The first thing that we did when we talked about this was do no harm. Do no harm. And so that will be the approach by which Fannie and Freddie and their respective boards take as it relates to this issue. I feel very confident that we have very good people that understand that we need to make sure that safety and soundness is intact. And I can tell you one thing, we are going to be very focused on the volatility of crypto and whatever assets may or may not be included in being recognized as collateral. But I will tell you, Sarah, this is further evidence of why the Fed needs to lower rates, because we are trying to do everything we can to increase affordability. And one of the reasons that we are doing this with regard to crypto is because crypto has an enormous opportunity to help with the affordability equation. I mean, Bitcoin is a very stable asset in our view. Obviously it has volatility, but a lot of assets have volatility. And a lot of people have a lot of wealth in Bitcoin. And so we want to make sure that people have access to the American dream, and we're doing everything we can. But that's more of a reason why we need our fake high priest of a Fed chair to lower rates.
Director Pulte, it's David Faber.
Bitcoin is a very stable asset, is what the director says. Trump's still not live yet, and he believes that the collateral that essentially Bitcoin can serve as would be stable enough, even in the midst of the volatility, for mortgage rates. I'm curious what people think of that. I mean, I don't think it's the craziest idea, but it's definitely, I mean, if Trump wasn't elected, we would not see the idea of Bitcoin being used as collateral for mortgages.
I wanted to talk to you about Fannie and Freddie specific to the privatization efforts. I had a guest on earlier in the week who owns a lot of what they believe is the fulcrum security here, namely the preferred, not the common. I'd love you to listen to their thinking on it and then.
All right, Trump's live.
Powers and the rule of law in striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch. The Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done. And really, it's been an amazing period of time this last hour. There are people elated all over the country. I've seen such happiness and spirit. Sometimes you don't see that, but this case is very important. I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months, we've seen a handful of radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers. It was a grave threat to democracy, frankly, and instead of merely ruling on the immediate cases before them, these judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of a duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect, or at least delay it for many years, tie it up in the court system. This was a colossal abuse of power, which never occurred in American history prior to recent decades. And we've been hit with more nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century together. Think of it, more than the entire 20th century, me. I'm grateful to the Supreme Court for stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex problem, and they've made it very simple. I want to thank Justice Barrett, who wrote the opinion brilliantly, as well as Chief Justice Roberts. and Justices Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. Great people. Thanks for this decision, and thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she can talk as long as she wants, because this is a very important decision. This is a decision that covers a tremendous amount of territory. But I want to just thank again the Supreme Court for this ruling. It's a giant. It's a giant. And they should be very proud, and our country should be very proud of the Supreme Court today. And with that, I'd like you to listen to the words of Pam Bondi. She's an incredible Attorney General. We're very proud of her. And as you know, Todd Blanche is with us, and we have so many others that worked on this case and other cases. And I think they're doing a great job. Pam, please say a few words.
Thank you, President Trump. Thank you for fighting for all Americans. Americans are finally getting what they voted for. No longer will we have rogue judges striking down President Trump's policies across the entire nation. No longer. Today, in the 6-3 opinion, Justice Barrett correctly holds that the district court lacks authority to enter nationwide or universal injunctions. These lawless injunctions gave relief to everyone in the world instead of the parties before the court. As the Supreme Court held today, they turned district courts into the imperial judiciary. Active liberal judges have used these injunctions to block virtually all of President Trump's policies. To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held 35 of the nationwide injunctions. Think about that. 94 districts, and 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. No longer. No longer. These injunctions have blocked our policies, from tariffs to military readiness to immigration to foreign affairs, fraud, abuse, and many other issues. The judges have tried to seize the executive branch's power, and they cannot do that. No longer. No longer. And on immigration, on a side note, today marks 2,711 arrests on these terrorists and these gangs. Total arrest today with HSI investigations. And thank you, Stephen Miller. Thank you to Homeland Security. Thank you to everyone working hand in hand with the FBI on all of these transnational gangs. TDA has been a huge terror to our country, as well as MS-13, as well as Sinaloa cartels. No longer. No longer. These injunctions have allowed district court judges to be emperors. They vetoed all of President Trump's power, and they cannot do that. This has been a bipartisan problem that has lasted 5 presidential terms, 5 different presidents, and it has ended today. We will continue to fight for President Trump's policies. I want to thank the Office of White House Counsel, Dave Warrington. You and your staff have been incredible. Our Solicitor General's office, John Sowers, Sarah Harris, and Todd Blanche and Emil Bovey. Todd's going to say a few words because we've had another major ruling today on transgender books and some other great wins that we've had. But no longer will they have this power in our country. It is the president's authority under his executive branch to do everything to fight for the American people, and he will continue to do that. That's why he was overwhelmingly elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, today's a great day for the rule of law. It's a great day for the Justice Department, and it's one that's been a long time coming, and one that every American should have been waiting for with bated breath. And so I echo what the president said and Attorney General Bondi, that the Supreme Court did a great thing today, not only for this administration, but for every American in this country. If not for the injunctions case, we would be here talking about another great decision that came down today, the trans books case, which restores parents' rights to decide their child's education. Seems like a basic idea, but it took the Supreme Court to set the record straight, and we thank them for that. And now that ruling allows parents to opt out of dangerous trans ideology and make the decisions for their children that they believe is correct. And so we thank the Supreme Court for that. There's been multiple decisions over the past several weeks that just show why this nationwide injunction ban had to happen. For example, what I mean by that is local district court judges issuing decisions that are clearly contrary to law just because they don't like the policy of President Trump. And when it gets to the Supreme Court has to correct it. But that takes time. The Attorney General thanked our lawyers, and I'll do it again. Our lawyers are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to fight these injunctions and to emergency appeals, emergency stays, going back to the district court judge, asking them to change their view. And so their hard work is really paying off today, but over the past few weeks. We had a stay of an order that prevented DHS from moving aliens to a third country. We had a stay of an order that stopped the Department of Defense from implementing military readiness, the EO that President Trump signed. We had another stay of an order forcing reinstatement of fired executive branch employees entirely within the president in Article 2, his right to do. We had a stay of, as you all know, of numerous DOJ cases. And again, every one of those stays required a tremendous amount of work and effort by the lawyers and parties involved. And they should be doing other work. They should be doing the work that the president and this administration demands and has a right to demand, and not fighting these local judges who don't make decisions based on the law. They make decisions because they just simply don't agree with the administration's decision about a policy, and that's wrong. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, for Pam, please.
Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Attorney General. So as you know, the Supreme Court did not rule on the underlying constitutionality of the president's birthright citizenship order. So what is the plan now? Are you going to try to implement the EO just in states where there isn't a legal challenge?
Yes, so birthright citizenship will be decided in October in the next session by the Supreme Court, unless it comes down in the next few minutes. I guess it could come down. I think they're still deliberating right now on some cases. As you heard, we just got transgender books, which is a huge win. But most likely that will be decided in October in the next session. However, it indirectly impacts us because, as you correctly pointed out, if there's a birthright citizenship case in Oregon, it will only affect the plaintiff in Oregon, not the entire country. So yes, it's indirectly, but that's pending litigation, and we're waiting on that in the next term.
And how concerned are you that the Supreme Court will come back and determine that the executive order is unconstitutional?
Oh, we're very confident in the Supreme Court. But again, it's pending litigation, and that will directly be determined in October, but it indirectly impacts every case in this country, and we're thrilled with their decision today. Peter.
Madam Attorney General, thank you for being here to take our questions. A couple questions to the both of you. The EO had a 30-day grace period before it goes into effect. Is there any thought about trying to make it effective immediately within that period of time?
We're going to follow the law. We're going to make those decisions, and we're going to do what's right in the bounds of the law.
And then the DOJ didn't ask the justices to rule on the merits of the birthright citizenship ban. Just for explanation purposes, why?
Sure, because that's going to come down in October in the separate. This was huge because it's indirectly impacted today. As I said, it's case by case. Let me reiterate, of the 35 of the 40 nationwide injunctions filed against this president, against his executive authority as president of the United States, 35 of them came from Maryland, D.C., Massachusetts, California, Washington. I mean, that's crazy. These 5 districts. So yes, it indirectly impacts us. It will be a separate decision in October. Next question.
Thank you, Mr. President. A question for you, sir. Do you believe this ends the power of the lower court judges to stop your agenda? Do you see this as a full green light for your agenda going forward?
Well, you'd have to really speak to the lawyers about that. But this is really also a decision based on common sense. It didn't work the other way. It was a disaster where somebody from a certain location in a very liberal state or a liberal judge or a liberal group of judges could tie up a whole country for years because their decision would sometimes take years to overturn. We've overturned many of the decisions, but it would take years to do it. And we have to act quickly when it comes to illegal immigration. We have murderers, killers, we have drug dealers, we have what they've allowed to come into our country. Should never be forgotten. It should never be forgotten what they've done to our country. And we have to be able to act very quickly, and we're going to do that. Thank you.
And just as Tony Barrett, sir, I know that you praised her and her opinion here in this case. She has taken some heat, though, from some of your supporters who have labeled her weak, a squishy, a rattled law professor. What is your take on that?
I don't know about that. I just have great respect for her. I always have. And her decision was brilliantly written today. From all accounts, yeah.
Transgender Mr. President, what would you say to Americans who fear that this is more and more concentration of power in the White House and the executive?
Well, this really brings back the Constitution. This is what it's all about. And this is really the opposite of that. I mean, the question is fine, but it's the opposite. The Constitution has been brought back.
Thank you so much, President Trump. Illegal crossings in the border are 0 now.
0. Does everyone hear that? 0.
Trump 2028.
Do you intend, President Trump?
Who's that guy? I like him. He's working the cameras.
With this new reality, President Trump in the border, do you intend to engage personally with leaders from South America, not only Central America, in order to tackle this situation in a different way? And if you have a perspective of meeting some presidents from South America as Brazil, for example.
As an example, not South America, but NATO over the weekend.
Yeah.
They have great respect for our country now. They did things that nobody thought was possible. They took funding from 2% to 5%. Nobody thought they'd ever pay the 2%, and now they're paying the 5%. It's over $1 trillion more a year. Think of that, $1 trillion. Nobody thought that could happen. That's a different group of people, different countries. Yeah, but we get along with a lot of countries. We are respected again. Our country, the U.S., is respected again. Was not respected 6 months ago. I can tell you.
Can we ask about the big
Yeah, go ahead, Trace.
Yeah, Mr. President, you have a deadline coming up on trade in 2 weeks. Which countries, if any, on trade, on tariffs, sir? Which countries, if any, are close to agreements with the administration?
Well, that's an interesting question. We've made a deal with China. We've made a deal with probably 4 or 5 different countries. With the UK, it was a great deal for both. And we're in the process of making some others. But ultimately, in fact, Scott is here. And Howard Lutnick, these 2 guys have been doing an incredible job. And the people that work with them have been doing an incredible job. But, you know, we have 200 countries. You could say 200 countries plus. We can't do that. So at a certain point over the next week and a half or so, or maybe before, we're going to send out a letter. We talk to many of the countries, and we're just going to tell them what they have to pay to do business in the United States. And it's going to go very quickly. But some of the bigger countries, so India, I think we're going to reach a deal where we have the right to go in and trade. Right now, it's restricted. You can't walk in there. You can't even think about it. We're looking to get a full trade barrier dropping, which is unthinkable. And I'm not sure that that's going to happen. But as of this moment, we've agreed to that, go into Indian trade. We're going to be trading in China. That's going to come a little bit down the road, but we're going to be trading in China. We have a lot of great things going, and we're getting along with countries, but some will be disappointed because they're going to have to pay tariffs. And we've taken in already hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. No inflation. The only problem we have is we have a Fed guy that doesn't understand what's happening, and it would be great if he'd lower the rate because we'd be able to borrow a lot cheaper. Yeah, go ahead, please. Why don't we keep it on this subject? This is such a big subject. You know what? Trade is so big, but this, I don't know, in a certain way, this might be bigger than trade. I think this is bigger than trade. Yes, please, go ahead.
I was wondering, though, if you could,
Go ahead.
sir, on the transgender ruling, the Supreme Court ruling that parents with religious objections can pull their kids out of public school lessons that use LGBTQ materials. Pam brought it up. Your reaction to that ruling today, sir?
I think the ruling was a great ruling, and I think it's a great ruling for parents. It's really a ruling for parents. They lost control of the schools. They lost control of their child.
Okay, so outside of the social policy stuff, S&P new all-time highs. Basically what he just said is India-China trade deal coming 616 on the S&P. 616. So maybe what he just said right now about China trade deal coming very soon along with India after is getting the market excited. Nvidia 158. Not there at 159. Grab. There's no news on Grab for those that are asking. I don't see anything. Seems like people are just buying it. I don't see any particular news for Grab right here. Google at 173. That one goes red. SoFi trying to get back to 1750. And then Palantir right here still down about 4% of the day. Nike, my goodness. By the way, Triple V just texted. He sold at 70 on the open. So he did not hold. He made about 700 grand. Sold at 70 on the open. But Nike right here, 73. Up 17% on the day. I mean, I would not have held this long anyway. But if you held, you bought Nike, you're long-term into Nike, congrats. Not a bad day at all. Robinhood right here, 83.20. Palantir 138. Nvidia again, 158.12. Currently, right now.
Came up with something that delayed the credit that our great pilots and these great what talent that was, and they hit it right down in the spot. 52,000 feet. Think of this dark, no moon. You couldn't see a thing. And they hit the refrigerator door, as they say. That's the size of a target. And overwhelmingly. And it's amazing what was done. We're the only ones that could have done it. And we took out the two of the other sites also. In addition to that, we finished them off. That was a very evil intention. I believe that, and again, time will tell, but I don't believe that they're going to go back into nuclear anytime soon. They spent over $1 trillion on nuclear, and they never got it together. And nothing was moved from the site, by the way. To do that is very dangerous.
Iran spent over $1 trillion on building their nuclear facilities. I don't know. Do they even have $1 trillion to spend on that? That's a little aggressive. I don't know if they spent $1 trillion to build out their nuclear stuff.
It's very, very heavy material. Those cars were most likely the cars of masons because they were pouring concrete at the top, at the hatch, as you know, the hatch going into the nuclear site. They wanted to reinforce it, and they had some masons there pouring concrete. By the way, that concrete was obliterated. It hit exactly at the concrete. It was, I don't think it had a chance to dry, but everything's down there. It's under millions of tons of rock. Please. Yes.
Your administration has said that El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the hemisphere. So why haven't you yet canceled temporary protected status for that country? Was it part of the deal?
Well, we'll take a look. We've had a great relationship with El Salvador. They have a fantastic leader. They built a massive prison system. And I don't know exactly why, but it's a hell of a system. And we bring people there, and when they go there, they don't get out. And frankly, when they hear they have to go there, they become very nice people. They become very nice people. It's a tough system, but it's a brilliant system. And it's a system done by a very, very good leader. We'll talk about El Salvador. A lot of respect. Yeah, please.
Thank you. A question for you and then a question for the Attorney General. As you go into negotiations and talks with Iran, are you demanding not only that there would be no uranium production inside of Iran, but also that Iran would turn over all existing stockpiles of uranium?
Well, you know, we're a little early for that, but something like that. Yeah, we'll do something like that. Let me say that I've been saying for 25 years, even as a civilian, you cannot let them have a nuclear weapon. And that's what happened. It's been obliterated. It would be years before they could ever get going. And I really think it's probably the last thing. They have to recover from a hell of a tough war.
Would you also be demanding that the IAEA have full rights to inspect in Iran?
Or somebody, yeah, or somebody that we respect,
And then
including ourselves.
And a question for both the President and the Attorney General. Under birthright citizenship, if this is implemented, who would be tasked with actually vetting citizenship? And how, like, would this be a situation where you have nurses and doctors checking for citizenship of parents, or?
This is all pending litigation. It's going to be decided in October by the Supreme Court, and we'll discuss that after the litigation.
If you have an undocumented baby, would that baby then be an enforcement priority?
The violent criminals in our country are the priority now. Let me put it in perspective. Today marked the 2,711th arrest in our country of TDA members, just TDA. Everyone in this room agrees they are one of the most violent criminal organizations in the world. And the Biden administration let them walk into our country for the last 4 years. 2,711 of them today have been arrested in our country. That is the priority of Donald Trump. That is the priority of this country, of Homeland Security, of all of our lawyers, of FBI. That's the priority. That will be discussed in October when the Supreme Court hopefully rules in our favor, and we're very confident of that. But you should all feel safer now that President Trump can deport all of these gangs, and not one district court judge can think they're an emperor over this administration and his executive powers, and why the people of the United States elected him.
I just might add one thing, and they used birthright citizenship, some of the worst people, some of the cartels, to get people into our country, just so you know. And again, I say, if you look at the end of the Civil War, the 1800s, it was a very turbulent time. If you take the end day, was it 1869 or whatever, but you take that exact day, that's when the case was filed. And the case ended shortly thereafter. This had to do with the babies of slaves, very, very obviously. And I think we're going to win. People I don't think they went about discussing it right. I came along and we looked and we said, wait a minute, this is wrong. We've been looking at birthright citizenship wrong for years, but they've used it. The cartels have used birthright citizenship to get very bad people in. And what Pam's doing and what Todd and everybody else, what they're doing at DOJ and all over, FBI, ICE, Border Patrol, these are incredible people. They're trying to keep our country safe, and they don't want to have people come in. This is just another way that they get illegal immigrants into our country, and in some cases, very, very bad ones. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your tax bill, if I could for a moment, senators are racing to rewrite parts of it right now after the Senate parliamentarian ruled that sections of it were outside of the process that they're using to get this through. Do you think that senators should respect the decisions of the parliamentarian? And what have you personally done in the last 48 hours to try and get Republican senators who are against the bill to a yes?
Well, look, it's a great bill. It's a massive tax cut. If it's not approved, your taxes will go up by 68%. Think of that, 68, a record, the highest in the history. The Democrats won't approve it only because politically it's so good for the Republicans. The Democrats aren't approving it. But think of what they're not approving. They're not approving border security. We've done a great job at the border, but we have to add some wall. We have to do various things. We have no money for that. We have no money for the border. We have no money for so many things. But if the Democrats, it'd be interesting to see if we get any Democrat votes. We should. If I were a Democrat, I would absolutely, maybe Fetterman, because he seems to be the most sensible one lately. If I were a Democrat, I would vote for this bill all day long because it's tax cuts and so many other things that are common sense. They're basic things. I think they're doing fine. The parliamentarian's been a little difficult. And I would say that I disagree with the parliamentarian on some things, and on other ways he's been fine. But we'll have to see. It's a big issue. I will tell you this: if that bill doesn't pass, the country will get a 68% tax increase. So think of this: you're a Democrat and you vote against it. That means you're voting in favor, because essentially you're voting in favor of the largest tax hike in the history of our country. And you can't do that. In addition, we're cutting costs by $1.7 trillion, and it won't affect anybody. It's just fraud, waste, and abuse.
Mr. Mr. President, a leading global economist just did a 180 and says your tariff plan, you may have outsmarted everybody with it. What is your message?
I love this. I love this question. This is the favorite. This is the best question I've ever been asked because I've been going through abuse for years on this. Because as you know, we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars, no inflation whatsoever.
But Mr. President, what is your message to critics who think your tariff plan will cause a recession?
I think they should go back to business school. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. I mean, we're taking in billions and billions of dollars from China and a lot of other countries. We took in, I had a call from somebody in the House and a high official. Sir, we have a problem. We don't know what to do. The books are a mess. I said, what do you mean by the books? The books, the money coming in. It's so terrible. I figured, oh boy, what's this? I don't like this question. I said, so what seems, there's so much money coming in and there must be some kind of an accounting mistake because we have hundreds of billions of dollars more money than we thought. I said, do me a favor, go check call me back. You have to call me back. Check the tariff column. Calls me back 2 hours later, says, you're right. We took in 88 billion in tariffs. They have so much money coming in.
Bro, content in chief. Content in chief. This is who Trump is.
But more important than the money coming in, we have companies coming in, factories coming in, auto plants being built. AI is being built here instead of being built all over Europe and Asia. We have all of it. We have over $15 trillion, just about, Scott. I think we're right about that number. We went to Saudi Arabia. We went to Qatar. We went to UAE. Very smart people, very smart leaders, great leaders. And we took in $5.1 trillion just there without the tariffs. I mean, they also liked a thing called November 5th, November 6th, and November 7th. That was a very good little period of time. It's called the presidential election. You know, you used to have one-day election. Now you have it go over it. But even if you just took that little period, because it was pretty obvious it was going to be a landslide. And they like that, but they love the tariffs. I had Texas Instruments come in the other day, big company, and he said, we're putting in $60 billion into new plants and new equipment, new everything. Sir, you're going to keep the tariffs, aren't you? Because whoever took the tariffs off, and we are going to absolutely keep it. And they're worried that somebody that, like this communist from New York, someday gets elected. I can't believe that's happening. That's a terrible thing for our country, by the way. He's a communist. We're going to go to a communistic state. That's so bad for New York. But the rest of the country is revolting against it. But if somebody got elected, they're afraid that if this was taken off, well, we're going to guarantee it's never going to be taken off. And again, we're taking in think of this, hundreds of billions of dollars. And they were all confused because they've never seen this before. You know, it's always the other way. We don't have enough money. So much money is coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen. But most importantly, we have factories being built, car plants being built, companies moving to our country like never before. If you look at 15 trillion, and that's only in a few months, you know, I haven't been here that long. Presidents like the last one was a disaster. He's the worst president in the history of our country, by the way. What he did on our border can never, ever be forgotten. To me, that's the worst of all the things. And he's done some terrible things, grossly incompetent. Nobody knew it was him because I don't think it was him. I think it was whoever was controlling the auto pen. But our country is doing great. And those leaders and other leaders I just left, as you know, a large group of the most highly respected people. And that includes big countries. When you look at Germany and France and Spain, although Spain didn't come through, but they will. By the way, guaranteed they will. That was the only country that sort of tried to hold back on putting up the money. But just so you know, they said, it's unbelievable what's happened to the USA. You were a dead country. We didn't respect the country, the leader. You were dead as a doornail. One said to me, you went from being a dead country. You are right now the hottest country anywhere in the world. The whole world is talking about the USA, and everybody wants a part of it, and they're pouring into our country. And you're going to see those numbers. Thank you for that question.
All right. I think that is pretty much it for the day. That was a pretty long answer, just re-summarizing his entire thesis around tariffs as he got that question. I mean, look, we did bring in 88 billion. He is correct about that. He's not wrong. The question is going to be the implications of that 88 billion on demand, inflation, yada, like all that stuff, right? So 88 billion in a vacuum sounds good. The question really becomes, what impact does that have on the economy? And I don't think it's going to have the worst impact, but obviously over the coming months, we're going to see how the economy reacts to more tariffs. And, these trade deals, which is kind of the biggest thing that Trump just said right now, is really going to make an impact in terms of how the market's interpreting the progress of growth and also hopefully the continual slowdown of inflation. So there you go. S&P 615.88. That is up about 0.5%. Palantir still down 4% of the day. Tessie down 1%. Robinhood down 2%. Nvidia not getting to 159, 158.71, but still above 157, which is good. Hopefully we close above 157. That's up about 1.52%. SoFi 1740, $17 close would be awesome. Meta 730, Amazon 219, Bitcoin 107. Overall, pretty green day regardless of some of the red candles that we're seeing. And the broader market has definitively made a new all-time high. And hopefully we get that close above, and then we make our way into Q3 starting next week. Iran is hitting 14. That one, again, told you guys Sunday night, the streets are talking about this one when it comes to FinTwit. So I don't have a position. I don't know anything about the company. I'm not really feeling any FOMO, to be honest. I mean, like at the end of the day, like, it is what it is. You can't chase everything. So I will try to organize the deep dive and hopefully get you guys some more information about this one. But there's a lot of things running in this market, bro. Like there's a lot of like I think mentally the way to psychologically deal with this is that you have your positions and you believe in those positions. If you try to chase Iran or Oscar or Lemonade or any of this stuff or Circle, like it might work one day, it might not work the other day. And so the positions that I'm really solidified in have done well, and I'm happy about that, but not that eager to chase a ton of this stuff. Circle right here down 10% of the day, and then Nike as well. Monster day, 18% for Nike. So not a bad rebound for this. And then Grab. Let's see if we can get that 480 close up about 3.2%. Not too bad. Again, Nvidia 157, Hoodie 82, and then Palantir 138.77. We'll do the final ETF update. See how everyone's doing. Steve will be on the market close. He actually has some thoughts on Lemonade. He was also not really a fan of the investment thesis, but he'll give us his thoughts and then we'll talk about the broader markets as well. Matt's up 13%. Tanner's up 6. I'm up 2. Steve's up 2.5. Chris is up 1.63. So the order is still the same. Matt, Tanner, Steve, Amit, and Chris. All of us are positive, but Matt is in the green. VG is getting hit right now, 5%. Not sure why. Maybe some profit taken here, but VG is also going down. I have not bought Oscar or ASTS. I honestly have not bought any of the names that have been like the new kind of names that people have been chasing and getting into. But I do think the people that have been in them and are seeing the shares go up and, changing their lives, it's incredible because these are real fundamental companies. I just personally have not been chasing them. Nvidia right here, 157.50, Hoodie 83.04, and then Palantir 138.89. Let's do word of the day, and then we are done for the market open. We'll be back on the close to end out Friday. Word of the day is glare. Glare.
Glare.
The white of an egg. The baker brushed the pastry with glare to give it a glossy finish. They use glare as a natural adhesive in a bookbinding process. Well, the other definition of glare is like, isn't there another definition of glare? I think I'm thinking of like sunlight, like the glare in your eyes or something. But technically, it's from the Latin root meaning clear, so that actually makes sense. Yeah. It's from the Latin root meaning clear. Glare is the white of an egg. So there you go. There you go. That is our word of the day. All right. I think that is it. We will be back on the close. Oh, that's a different spelling? Oh, shit. Damn. But it sounds the same, right? Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's a difference. Dude, but still, it sounds this exact same. Yeah, I was like the glare of the sunlight. Like I was thinking that's. You can't get mad at me for that, dude. It's like Duolingo for English classes. That's called a homophone, right? When two words sound the same, but they're spelled different. Yeah, see, your boy knows some phonics. Okay. It's not like I don't know anything about the English language. There you go. All right, glare. See, I was like, why the white of an egg? I was like, where did that come from? I was like, I thought glare was looking at something or light that's shining to her. We're not just mad, we're disappointed. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, that's it. I'm out. I'll be back for market close. We'll have Steve on. Steve actually will be on in person. So he'll be on at like 4:30, 4:45, but he'll be home and he'll be on the camera and we'll get to talk to him later today. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all. See you guys on the market close. Bye, everyone.